We're cracking down on password sharing. Oh yeah? It's not going to take away any of your general excitement for Disney Plus or Hulu. It's just one of those things that we have to kind of be realistic about. You know, the money is, you know. Oh yeah, no, for sure. And it's not a big enough deal that it's going to ruin everybody's experience of the streaming platform. Like, how many people realistically share passwords anyway? It's just a small minority, you know? Oh yeah, no, for sure. Totally. Besides, like, you guys have Mandalorian to look forward to and all of the really awesome Marvel series and movies. Lots of stuff to look at, the classic Disney movies, and you guys could all get together and watch it as a family. You don't have to worry about giving your passwords away. It's not going to take anything. Totally, dude. Yeah, no, for sure. Totally. Just people make such a big deal out of minor changes that we make, and it's never as big of a deal as people make it out to be. I'm sure that once you won't even probably notice it. You know what I'm saying? And the price jumps are one thing, and we'll all work through that one together. Yep. And I doubt this has changed your mind on keeping Disney Plus. I'm sure you still plan on keeping it, right? No, put my stuff in the cabin, and then we can take off
Mace?
after. Who said?
Mace, over here. You're gonna keep Disney Plus, right?
Yeah. I'll hang on to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, keep it in the cabin, and then after that, we'll hit a run. We'll make for the Bahamas, and then after that, we'll talk. All right, I'll let you go. I know you're with me on that. I like that guy. He's a good kid. Thought he'd never leave. All right, gentlemen, we good?
Aye, Captain.
First mate, play the song.
Aye, sir.
I would have never guessed that a post like this could be controversial in the least. Who would have thunk it? So there are women in the comment section saying, I would have yelled at my man. Why would her man do that? I would never let my man do stuff like this for another woman. Like, why don't they call their boyfriends? And just a whole bunch of nonsense. This man clearly is a gentleman who looks like he was raised right. It is midnight. These women are alone. He seems like he knows how to change the tire, and they probably don't, so he's helping them. You're standing right there. Sis, if you don't trust your man, just say that. It is so weird to me that a woman encourages her man to be mean to other women. Like, you want him to let doors slam in their faces because you're not holding no door for no chick who ain't me. Like, girl, relax. I know there are women out there who are secretly flattered by the fact that their man is normally mean to women, but he's nice to them. And they think it's cute that he's mean to every other woman, but he's nice to you. Eventually, you'll be every other woman, and he'll be mean to you too. I mean, we say that we don't want toxic men, but when you get an unproblematic king, you're trying to make him feel bad for being an unproblematic king, like he's trying to be helpful. What's the problem? Some men are not gentlemen at all. They're not doing anything kind for any woman that they're not trying to sleep with, any woman that they're not trying to get something from. And some men only rush to open a door for a woman if it's the bedroom door. So if you have a man that actually is kind enough and caring enough, thoughtful enough to do something for a woman he expects nothing from, I think that's impressive. In a world where a man spends $30 or $40 on a woman on a first date, and thinks he's entitled to take that woman home and do Cirque du Soleil style activities with her, the fact that this man is changing a tire for some women that he's never seen before and may never see again, and all he'll probably get is a thank you, and that's enough for him, that deserves to be celebrated. The raggedy men with the podcast mics and the horrible takes are always all over our FYP. We need more men like this to remind women that good men are still out there. They do exist. And some men do nice things for women and expect nothing in return. They're just nice guys. Not the nice guy that they always talk about. The nice guy that gets mad when he doesn't get the good girl or he doesn't get the woman that he wants. Not the fake nice guys, but the real nice guys that do things for people and expect nothing in return.
Tonight I'm going to see Janelle Monáe and Flying a Boss. And this is the age of pleasure. Let's do it. This that wake up and look in the mirror like, yes, I'm feeling sex.
If I keep on giving them lipstick and kill, they gon' have to come and arrest me. Rolling around with my besties, skin looking good cause we stress free. Let's make a toast at the Mansion, to my brothers keeping it fancy.
I'm raising the bar, they giving me stars, they think I'm supreme. They say I look better than David Bowie in a bootleg tree. They keep on gassing me up, I'm smoking a pack of that loud. And to me like this in the wild, I'm young and I'm black and I'm proud. Bitch, I'm done.
Y'all, the concert was amazing, bro. It was a fun concert. It was a good vibe. Flying a Boss killed it up there, man. They have such good stage presence and such good synergy. Like, they really connected. They're really good friends. You could tell, like, just from the performance, they're really good friends. Wow. And we need to give Janelle Monáe their flowers. Not enough to get said about how great Janelle Monáe is at so many different things. Like, that wasn't just a concert. It was a performance. It was theater. It was a story being told.
Don't ask me shit around the world, 'cause I'm on my champagne shit. I'm smoking high, there's no sugar, 'cause I'm on my champagne shit. I used to pray about taking vacations. Remember the bills we split? Now we in Chicago, busting them bottles like we won a championship.
And Janelle Monáe is always just really intentional about the rationale behind their work. Check this out.
I just want to say that the age of pleasure is not about everything being flowery, perfect, but it's really about centering joy. Actively fighting for joy, not fighting against those who don't see us. They don't think we deserve to have this level of community. They don't believe in us as actual people of the LGBTQIA plus community. They don't believe that Black lives matter. They don't believe that trans rights are human rights. We don't center hate, but we center love.
And to the people that followed me that I met there, thank you so much for the kind words and for showing love. I'm really grateful for y'all, truly. Love and light to you all, and as always, like and follow for more content.
What does a community look like when we center love? What does community dance like, thrive like, when we feel safe? So the age of pleasure is our safe oasis. And thanks for making this a sold-out show, Chicago!
الشارع هذا كانوا بيقولوا عنه شارع السمر لأنه أكثر منطقة بيسكنوها اللي هم إحنا خاصة يعني الناس السمر يعني.
كفتاة ذات بشرة سوداء عايشة في قطاع غزة، أنا تعرضت للعنصرية من وأنا طفلة صغيرة وما زلت لهذه اللحظة بتعرض للعنصرية لأسباب أنا بصراحة مش عارفة إيش هي.
كانت زمان بس الحين لا، مش موجود إطلاقا. الأسمر والأبيض واحد.
ما نضحك على حالنا ونقول إنه العنصرية مش موجودة عندنا في المجتمع الفلسطيني. هي موجودة ولكن بنسبة أقل مما كانت عليه قبل 25 سنة أو 50 سنة.
في فترة الطفولة إلا ما تلاقي فيه أطفال يعني يأذيك بكلمة نوعا ما، كوشي أسمر، وين يا شوكولاتة، وين يا إشي زي هيك.
إذا كان في بينه وبينك مزح احكي بدك إياه، بس مزح بأدب وبحدود.
لما تيجي أسمر بأسلوب الذم بيختلف عن أسمر بأسلوب المدح، لأنه الأغاني كلياتها اللي بتغنوا فيها بالجمال للون البشرة السمراء. يعني
في حد كان يقول لي ما تلمسيني علشان ما أتشحبر، يعني ما يصير أسمر زيي.
كانت المدرسة مملوءة بالسمر وبالبيض، عمرنا ما حسينا إنه في فرق بين أسمر وبين أبيض، دائما مع بعض كأهل كأصدقاء كأصحاب.
وأنا ماشية في الشارع نظرات الناس لإنه نظرات الأطفال، نظرات الناس الكبيرة حتى في السن، يعني بيعتبروني صراحة إن أنا كائن فضائي، بيعطوني نظرات إنه إحنا أفضل منك، إنه أنت أقل منا.
عمر ما واحد أهاني في قصة إنه أنا أسود هو، لا في مدرسة ولا في نادي ولا في عبادة،
حتى في الطريق في الشارع في كل حاجة في السواق ما في.
كلياتنا يعني ربنا خلق هذا أسمر، خلق هذا أبيض. الشيء الأساسي اللي الإنسان يحكم عليه اللي هو تعامل الإنسان، جوهر الإنسان من جوا، أخلاق الإنسان، نجاحات الإنسان اللي وصل لها.
أنا أخواني مهندسين، واحد مهندس ميكانيكي والثاني مهندس كمبيوتر، وبيشتغلوا عادي، وأنا اشتغلت هنا في دير البلح، كنا أنا وياهم حبايب مع بعض، أسمر وأبيض.
قدمت لشركة وكانت السكورز تبعتي هي الأعلى، لكن تفاجأت إنهم هم استغنوا عني، وحكى لي مدير العلاقات العامة قال لي أنت جدعة وطموحة وقد حالك، لكن أنا ما بخاطر إنه أوظف يعني إنسانة ذات بشرة سوداء للشركة، لأنه إحنا بهمنا بهمنا الواجهة الإعلامية، وهذه كانت صدمة في حياتي، يعني صدمة جدا.
عند موضوع الزواج لا، بصير في فارق، وبصير في شوية يعني تمييز، إنه لا إحنا ما بنعطيش سمر.
عندي أبنائي خطبنا لهم وجوزناهم من أسر أصحاب البشرة البيضاء، فهذا اليوم صار ظاهرة إيجابية.
عادي جدا شاب أسمر يتجوز واحدة بيضاء، لكن بنت سمرة تتجوز واحد أبيض لا، هذا مرفوض.
من باب إنه هاي البنت لما بدها تروح على بيت العيلة، ممكن تكون هي السمرة الوحيدة اللي في العيلة، فممكن تعيش في أزمة، ممكن تواجه مشاكل، ممكن توصل للطلاق في الآخر على أساس بس فكرة اللون. الإنسان لما ينجرح بالذات في الصغر، يعني من موقف معين إلا ما يضل ملازمه لحد ما يكبر.
ضليتني منعزلة في البيت، ما بعمل إشي، ما بسوي، ما بطلع مع أصدقائي، حتى المراية ما كنت أطلع فيها. لكن بالنهاية الحمد لله طلعت من هذا الاكتئاب واستمريت وعملت إنجازات ووصلت للي أنا بدي إياه. أنا من وجهة نظري إنه الآباء لازم يوعوا أطفالهم عن موضوع العنصرية وبالذات للون.
أنت في مجتمع في الأول والأخير يعني متعدد، يعني بدك تتعامل إنه في إنسان أهله مربينه منيح وعارفينه هذا صح وهذا غلط، إنه في لون أسمر في لون أبيض.
يعني لما مثلا واحد طفل أسود تعرض لتنمر بقول له أبوه تجاهل، ليش؟ بإمكانك أنت ترد عليه، بإمكانك إنه أنت تعطيه رد إنه أنا رافض، إنه أنت عنصري.
نزرع في الأجيال اللي جاية إنه لا، التنوع والاختلاف هذا شيء حلو كتير. يعني جميل واسمر طبعاني، أقرب له يروح لبعيد ويوعدني ملوش مواعيد ويوم ما يجيني يتأخر.
It's the first time I'm crying in a press conference. I thought you're...
Would you like for me to explain to you the function of white women tears using semiotic theory? I'm gonna do it anyways. I don't care what you say. So, semiotics is the study of signs and symbols and their use or interpretation. This can include a whole myriad of things. Visual, auditory, what have you. To explain semiotic theory, we first have to explain what a sign is. So signs and symbols are different. Signs are like a one-to-one. For instance, if I show you a lighter, what I mean is a lighter. If I show you a cookie, what I mean is a cookie. I'm not implying any meaning beyond what it is. It's like saying 1 equals 1. It is what it is. So once you pair a sign with a precise context, then it creates a desired meaning, which then elicits an intended response. This is one of the basics of how communication works. So again, using the sign of the lighter, if I showed you a lighter, and the context is that you're standing outside of a building with a cigarette in your hand, then in that moment, the designed meaning could be that I'm offering you this lighter. And the intended response from you would be to take it from me and use it. Let's use words to illustrate this, right? So if I say it's sunny outside, and the context is that it's warm outside, the sun is shining, you can see light all over my face, then the design meaning of that phrase is me just making an observation. And the response from you might be just nodding, just acknowledging. Here's what white tears does. Let's use the same phrase. If I say to you, it's sunny outside, and we have the same context, it's bright outside, it's warm, the sun is shining down on our faces, I'm still making an observation. But what if you responded by crying? That would be so out of left field, something in this process got mixed up. You can't change the sign because the sign is still a one-to-one. The sun is still the sun. But what people forget is that context is variable depending on experience, oftentimes cultural knowledge. So what if I said it was sunny outside, but I'm a traveler, and I didn't know that there's like this 20-year drought where I'm traveling to? But I didn't know that, right? So you crying would make perfect sense in that moment. What White Tears seeks to do is recontextualize the reading of the communication itself. Because everybody saw what happened on that tennis court. There's no pretending that what happened on that court did not happen at all. It was televised. There was an audience. The sign is the sign. Her actions were her actions. But by responding in the way that she is doing, she is calling into question the precise context under which those signs were interpreted. Because while much of the public read her actions, the signs, as racist in the context of that match with Coco Gauff, she has to manipulate the circumstances under which those signs were read. And white privilege itself allows white people to not have the exact or precise cultural context for the things that they are reading. so that when they see her crying, they look for a different context as to why she is crying. And that is White Woman Tears explained by Semiotic Theory. That was fun. I had fun.
If you want to learn a lot about a person, ask them how they feel about Beyonce.
That video is so funny because I was talking to another creator about this, and I used to think the exact same way, but I think that in this day and age of like continued celebrity worship, it's really becoming detrimental to our society. So right now, Ariana Grande is another example of this, where I personally I became disillusioned by Ariana Grande, honestly, after the whole donut thing and like how she got onto Good Morning America and was laughing the entire time. I knew she was an unserious girl, and so from that moment on, I was like, oh, she's probably not like a really good person. And I think people need to understand that good music doesn't equate good person. And so when it comes to Beyonce in particular, right, I feel like you kind of have to discuss which Beyonce you're talking about. And you can do this with any artist, you can do this with any celebrity, but you really need to discuss like who you're talking about, because there's the artist as a performer or as a singer or as a rapper, which if we're talking about Beyonce the performer, like I love this woman. I will 1000% always give her that. Like she is an amazing, incredibly talented performer and artist and singer. And I feel like if you look me dead in my eyes and you say with a straight face that she's overrated, I know you're just a hater. And then you examine the person/public persona that they put forward. Because Beyonce doesn't really talk to people, I mainly look at her as like a mother and a sister and a wife. I love Beyonce the mother. I love Beyonce the sister. I think that she's an incredible mother, and I think that she is a fierce protector of her children. Hence, I want to do a separate video about celebrity children and like the way that y'all demonize Blue Ivy, because from the moment she was born, she really didn't get a fair chance in this world. Like in the media landscape, she really has not gotten a fair chance. So when it comes to Beyonce the person, like I will continue to love her because I think she's genuinely cool. Now this is like the last part, how I view a celebrity, and that's in terms of their brand. But like the Beyonce brand is where I feel like really started having issues with and kind of become disillusioned, especially after the Tiffany & Co. campaign. Because if you don't know, I think in like 2021, Beyonce did a campaign with Tiffany & Co. and she wore this 24 karat diamond, but the diamond has had a very extremely bloody history. Like it's a blood diamond, which if you don't know what a blood diamond is, it basically is a diamond that was mined by exploited workers, predominantly in Africa, but it could be anywhere. But it was mined by exploited workers, and they more than likely died while trying to get this diamond, or they were beaten severely if they weren't working hard enough or fast enough. And I get it, right, that from this campaign, there was a $2 million scholarship set up by Tiffany & Co. But I feel like, personally, that's something that Beyonce and Jay-Z could have done instead of choosing to partner with a company that, in all honesty, has never really been for Black people. Which, side quest really fast, Tiffany & Co. is owned by Coty, which also owns brands like Balenciaga, they own Kylie Cosmetics, they own Adidas, and their founder, his name escapes me, but he was a Nazi collaborator and also compared himself to Mussolini. He was a French senator, and I could do a deep dive on this as well because this is an interesting thing, but I don't think that this is a brand or a company that Black people should want to get behind. And so in recent years, I feel like the Beyonce brand has really become very capitalistic and materialistic when it was never really that. Like, I've watched her since I was 4 or 5 years old. Beyonce's brand it was very down to earth. It was very casual. She was always a haute couture girl, but it was never to this extent. Which I feel like this is in part to Jay-Z. I'm not trying to blame him, but like, again, I love Jay-Z, but I think like Jay-Z is a capitalistic man. Like, he is the definition of a Black capitalistic man. And especially after watching this video from FD Slinger about the real faces of Black conservatism, Jay-Z was included in this. And again, the breakdown of like Jay-Z's practices and just how he operates, it really affirms that there is no ethical way to become a billionaire. And on top of that, even Black capitalism, the way that Jay-Z does it, it's a facade. And I really recommend this video for anybody to watch because it is interesting. FD Slinger breaks down like Louis Farrakhan, he breaks down Bill Cosby, and he also breaks down Jay-Z and kind of how they have been detrimental to the growth of the Black community. And people will say, oh, Lady Gaga wore the diamond, Audrey Hepburn has worn the diamond. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't expect white people to change their behaviors for Black people's needs. However, what I do expect is major figureheads in the Black community don't, and this is for lack of a better word, but don't sell out their own people in order to get ahead or to get this title that honestly doesn't mean anything. Because in preview, this is about to be a podcast episode, but I've said this in other videos where wealthy people don't dress for regular people, they dress for other wealthy people. But I feel like this level of wealth, I'm not saying it's tacky to white people, but it's kind of just like, knowing the history, it's kind of like, why would you wear this? Like, you're Black, like, why would you wear this? And I get it that even if she did find out later there were contracts that were signed, she has to fulfill her contractual obligations. But I think after the major inspiration that Black is King and the Gift album was to the Black community, it was still very jarring for me to see that Beyonce was wearing a blood diamond. And so going back to the creator's point, I 1000% think that it is weird when anybody says that Beyonce is overrated when it comes to her singing, performing capabilities. However, I can see people's hesitation when it comes to wanting to endorse the Beyonce and Jay-Z Carter brand. Which, just like in the Barbie movie, when Barbie was trying to explain to Ken, like, maybe it's Barbie and it's Ken, I feel like people should stop tying Beyonce and Jay-Z together. Maybe it's Beyonce and it's Jay-Z. Like, just because they're married, just because they kind of, like, built something together, doesn't mean that they have to be joined at the hip. But again, I personally feel like it's Jay-Z kind of pushing Beyonce to be this model minority woman, when Beyonce was already a role model for so many of us before the ultra luxury capitalist materialistic scene. So again, depending on which Beyonce somebody's talking about, I kind of don't fault them for whether or not they like a certain celebrity or if they don't like Beyonce. But if you say that she's not a talented performer, then yeah, like I said, you're a weirdo and you're definitely a hater.
Have you ever wondered why so many pro-Black men are anti-feminism and homophobic? Unfortunately, it may be because of this Black woman, Frances Cress Welsing. She wrote the ISIS Papers as an attempt to try to find what the root of white supremacy is, why it exists. And in her understanding, she determined that the cause of supremacy is to prevent the annihilation of the race. Now, you may be wondering, what does this have to do with anti-feminism and homophobia? Well, she thought that Black men were the main target of white supremacy because Black men have the ability to annihilate the race through procreation. From that conclusion, she drew another conclusion that feminism is a supremacist ploy to get Black women to economically advance so far that they no longer needed Black men, and that the Black family unit would be destroyed, and then there would be no procreation of Black people. Which, when you think about it, is really sad because it reduces women to their role as an incubator for the next generation. But Black women weren't the only marginalized group within the Black community that she had a problem with. She also thought that homosexuality was an agenda to prevent the procreation of Black people through emasculating the strong Black man. In reality, the construction of cis heteropatriarchal gender roles and therefore cis heteropatriarchal sexuality is a product of white supremacy, making her an agent of white supremacy through her anti-feminist rhetoric and her homophobia. If any of this sounds familiar, there's a reason for it. Pan-Africanist Black men don't want liberation for all Black people. They want to be on top in a hierarchy of Black supremacy that centers Black men. Black, cis, heteropatriarchal values are just repackaged white supremacy.
Y'all love faking like y'all from the hood so bad until someone who is from the hood acts like that's where they're from, and then all of a sudden they're an awful person. I'm gonna be a little bit vulnerable with y'all for a second, which I hate doing because y'all love flipping that on people, but I need to make this point. A lot of y'all condemn the behaviors of people who grew up with nothing because you don't understand what it's like to grow up with nothing. You don't understand the mindset that creates. Do you truly believe in getting it out the mud, you're not gonna get your hands dirty? This is not saying that everyone who's ever had a come up has done something unethical, but a lot of times that's the case. How do you think you get out of that situation? This system was not built to help people get their come up. It was built to keep you in the same position for the rest of your life and have your children be in that position and their children be in that position and so on and so forth. Some of y'all fave creators will tell y'all, oh, I grew up not knowing where my next meal was coming from. I grew up, homeless, or always wondering if I was going to have a roof over my head or a bed to sleep in at night. They accept a brand deal from a sketchy company and y'all are like, why would you sell out like this? Why would you? You've clearly never been in a position of, I gotta get everything while I can because I don't know what I'm gonna eat next. And I'm coming from a place of empathy. I've been there. Contrary to the glitz and glamour, contrary to the pink and the pearls, I'm a trench baby. My old cribs are the backdrops to some of y'all favorite rappers' YouTube videos when they were first started. And that's not hyperbolic. I'm being very literal. And I'm not telling y'all who because y'all like to stalk people on the internet. That's weird. I just got lucky enough to live different experiences than a lot of my neighbors, so I came out of it a little different. Like when Sexy Red said the hood loved Trump, she was not lying. And then y'all trying to cancel the girl for being a Trump supporter. That girl does not support Trump. She supports a check. And then people saying, well, politics is basic education. Yeah, for you, Jennifer, you grew up in suburbia. Do you not realize that education is based off your taxes? If you live in the hood, I'm sorry, you don't get offered AP Gov. Like, y'all get on this app every day and co-op gang culture like it's funny. Like, oh, I'm smoking so-and-so pack. I got the blicky. I'm wearing my shiesty. Tanner, you live in a $3,000 a month apartment in LA. You don't even need a shiesty for the weather. What's wrong with y'all? Then act shocked and appalled when people are actually products of those environments. And I don't know about y'all, but I am especially empathetic to people who are products of an environment created by a system that hates them.
Pertinent to say it, I know folks ain't gonna like this one. I don't have sons right now, but when I do have sons, I'm gonna teach them that there's a difference between diamonds and dirt and rubies and rocks.
I'm gonna say something that I think is pertinent and you probably won't like it. Rubies and diamonds are rocks. That's how they start off. Underneath the dirt with a whole bunch of pressure, and you would never know it until an entitled fuck drills into the earth, takes something that is not his, polishes and cleans to a standard that he has created, and then puts it behind a glass case with a security system to protect it from people like himself. Understanding that all rocks do not produce rubies and diamonds, I want to reiterate the importance of rocks. Not only do they maintain shorelines and mountains, because erosion is in fact bad, they can also be used for medicine to create structures. And in case you had forgotten, Earth herself is nothing but a hunk of rock. If there were no dirt and rocks for your non-existent sons to stand on, they would simply fall through to the center of the earth and be incinerated. Number 2, because I know all the pick-me's missed biology class, you don't have the ability to choose the sex of the baby before it is born to continue the lineage of the shitty-ass men that you want to be chosen by. Blessed be the fruit, may it never fucking open. That's why when Dana Dane got on the internet and said we as black people need to separate, I was in agreement. Because women like this will get women killed because y'all are a breeding ground for a dangerous ideology, curating scenarios even though we already had a scenario as if it's your brothers and your fathers that we are running into. If that were the case, we wouldn't be dying by their hands for simply saying no. But with the ideologies that you promote, you've just made all of us the problem. Now it's, oh, we don't know how to listen and take instruction from men that are not trying to instruct us. Now it's, we don't know how to choose safe spaces as we are simply standing in our driveways and get attacked, as we are walking through the parking garage coming from work and get attacked, as women are leaving fucking church and getting attacked. The matter is, even if you put diamonds and rubies behind a glass case with a locked door and a security system, if somebody wants your shit, they will bust the glass and take it.
That Lizzo's biggest mistake was blurring that line between, employer, employee.
Because the hostile work environment that Lizzo's dancers are describing is absolutely related to things that happen in nonprofit settings. Working in a nonprofit where folks call their employees and their staff or create this culture that we are a family sets up this dynamic where enmeshment happens. And enmeshment is especially harmful to Black women, BIPOC folks within nonprofit settings because of the dynamic that it creates with the person in a leadership role, the person that's in power. Enmeshment trauma impacts our ability to be able to draw boundaries with folks that we should, in any other kind of situation, be able to stand up for ourselves and advocate for. And that family dynamic disarms us in those type of settings because it kind of mimics the relationship that you potentially had or have with a family member, a caregiver, a parent. So when I see folks say things like, they should have just been able to walk away, this is their job, their work environment. Lizzo has created a relatively unique work experience or opportunity for folks that, you know, her dancers really want. It's not just about a paycheck. And so that type of connection gets attached to our identities within these settings. And like I mentioned, if you're someone that has this enmeshment trauma where boundaries, the lines of boundaries are very hard to draw with others, it creates like this internal storm. And again, because all of this is connected to your identity, you may handle it in the same way that you would if you were navigating this type of situation with a family member. And this type of situation meaning some type of conflict, or again, some type of situation where you feel like you need to advocate for yourself, your existence has been diminished, so on and so forth. So of course, I'm not one of Lizzo's dancers. I haven't been in that work environment with them, but I have been in similar ones where people in power and leadership roles abuse their power. And it's very difficult to pinpoint it at times because, again, if you have this like family culture that you've created with these folks, you don't really know where the boundary lines are. And this is why I talk to a lot of my clients in nonprofit settings about the 7 types of boundaries and how this connects to conflict work. So I think that there's something there related to boundaries needing to be withdrawn in that type of environment.
Sir, they're still picketing outside. We should really do something about this strike. You stupid, stupid man. We can never pay them. Why not? They want residual checks, which means we're gonna have to actually tell them how much money we're making. And that's not gonna happen. Why can't we tell them? Because we've made nothing. Zero. You think your little $10.99 a month is gonna fund a $500 million movie? That doesn't even cover Zendaya's lunch. No, that's impossible. Streaming has been bleeding from the throat since it started. We haven't had a profitable year yet. And when these investors find out that we've been lying to them this whole time, Hollywood is gonna crash. And then what? We're gonna have to go back to cable. That doesn't sound too bad, actually. Oh, you innocent little turtle dove. Don't worry, Daddy's gonna fix everything. They have no money to keep up a strike. They'll be homeless by Christmas. Sir, that's evil. If making money is evil, you can call me Ashton Kutcher. Oh, and don't tell Ashton that I said that. He's pretty desperate. I'll have him scabbed for a role in Transformers. There won't be another Transformers movie if we don't end this strike. We need writers. No, we don't. Johnson, how's the AI script writing software looking?
It's looking good, but the Tarantino setting keeps putting him in every scene and giving him way too much dialogue.
Okay, but let me hear it.
I don't think I can say what it's writing right now.
That's fine. Everything's okay. All right, we got Indiana Jones, a new season of American Horror Story, and a film that's gonna make so much money we'll never hear about the Guild again. The Flash. Actually, sir, the box office reports for those movies just came back. Pay the writers. But sir, what about everything you just said? Pay the damn writers!
I know it may not seem like it, but there are very few actors who are actually wealthy. Then there are some actors who are rich. But for the most part, the actors that make up the entertainment industry are working check to check. I was super duper fortunate to, at the age of 35, land on a television show that ended up being iconic. And it afforded me the opportunity to get financial stability for the first time in my life. I have been an actress since I was 8 years old. I've been in the Screen Actors Guild since 1994. Acting did not afford me financial stability till I was 35. This is because the industry itself is not made for actors. It's not made for crew. It's not made for creatives. The industry is made for the industry. The creatives and the actors are deciding, well, we have to protect ourselves. But that's not for everybody. And it shouldn't have to be, because ultimately the business that is betting on the business that is created from what we're doing should actually support us. So I say all that to say that as you're watching people on their feeds talking about the writer's strike with the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, and the now actors strike with SAG, the Screen Actors Guild of America / AFTRA,
What you're seeing is the people who are making the shows you love, the movies you love, the projects that you love, saying, hey, we know that you execs got money because people love this work, and they love this work not because of you, but because of us. And so we should get to reap the benefits that you guys are reaping. Labor unions are created because laborers are exploited. And that happens in every field when it comes to capitalism. Ba-dum-bum. Union strong.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? I know y'all have seen like snippets of this video and maybe the whole video, you know, it came out like last week, a week or so ago. When I tell you, I'm obsessed with this choreography. The song eats down. But baby, these dancers in this video and the choreographer, they ain't had to do us like that. You ain't had to eat us up like that. You ain't had to leave no crumbs on the damn plate like that. Look at the... You better... Ooh, they be making me so mad. And they do it so good that they make me feel like I could do it. They make me feel like I could do it. I can't do that. I got a lidocaine patch on my back right now. I'm smothering chicken. I can't do this. But baby, they make me feel like I could. You better walk it. You better walk it. You better tell me where to go in the... Y'all gotta stop. Come on. Yes. Yeah. Come on. And I love when a video has the art, like the video does not have the artist in it. I love that. That's old school. Because nowadays, everybody want to be front and center. You better walk it. You better be leaning me. And see, don't roll up on me like that, little sir. He ain't had to roll up. But see him right here? Baby, let me tell you something. Baby, he ain't leave no crumbs. His rent was due. He was fighting for his life. He's dancing for his life. Shimmy, 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 shake. Reach it. And grab it. And do it. Tip, tip, tip. Yeah, yeah. Ooh. Don't do that. Don't turn around and look at me like that. You better the way you make me feel walk away. That's what that was giving me. Pose. And let me clap my hands for you. And I love the way it looked like it was just one take. It might have been one take. I feel like it was one take, but that mean these people was in their bag, baby. Don't fuck up. Because now we got to start over because you didn't know your A count. You didn't know your boom cat. Look at his arms. His name is Will West. I'm obsessed with him now. I know all about him now. Baby, Jungle, I have been listening to them. That's the only thing that's got me all Stromae. Is Jungle. Now, I'm Stromae down now. Don't get it twisted. But see, Jungle got bangers. That's what I'm talking about. Give me the vibes. Jungle, where are you going? You walking off into the distance, and I appreciate it. Look at his traps and lats. I don't even know if that's the right term for his back. I don't know, child. He got a nice back. And then the one that come after that is a bop too. You ain't no celebrity, honey. Come on, Jungle. Y'all was in y'all bag. Thank you. I appreciate that. Y'all ain't had to do us like that. Ooh, come on. Yeah. Ooh.
Did you know that the South has the highest population of Black Americans than any other place in the country? Hi, I'm Abiola Ogoro, and this is DSR in a minute or less. Come here. And if you don't already know, behind me I have the beautiful bridge of Tuscaloosa, right? Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So roll tide to all of you that are from or fans of the area. Now, one large thing about the South that a lot of people don't tend to know is that the South contains 56% of the Black population of the United States. And the reason why isn't necessarily surprising, but the reason why now may be an interesting turn of events that you did not realize. So, obviously, the majority of the slaves in the United States during the period before slavery and right in the aftermath were located in the South. And once those people were freed, a lot of them ended up remaining in the South for a certain time period because of the fact not only they had established some level of stronghold here, but because some of them were then able at times to get certain parts of land, since land was more readily available in the South than it was in the North. Now, not too long after this, there started to be large swaths of people that moved to the North because even after slaves were freed, they wanted a certain level of freedom, further freedom, a greater level of fluidity when it came to how they moved, what they did, and their political representation in the United States. So there continued to be a gentle migration of slaves up. But it wasn't until 1910, what was called the Great Migration, up until 1970, that the South lost a large population of its Black Americans because a lot of them decided to move up to the North. Now, remember this, during the 1900s, especially between 1930 to 1950, there was a large amount of anti-civil rights legislation, a larger pushback against Black Americans, a higher level of restriction. Once Black people finally got the right to vote, a push against that right to vote with poll taxes and with literacy tests. And so there were a lot of people during this time period that were just done. And especially in the following of the civil rights movements with the passing of MLK and Malcolm X and other historical figures, they decided to leave. But when they left, they ended up being sorry, I don't want to get my car. They ended up being largely located in some of the largest places in the United States that we know now, including cities like New York, Chicago, even parts of LA and other places, because they went to where they saw the largest populations that would give them the most freedoms and ability to navigate in those societies. Now, following from all of this now, the South currently still contains 56% of the Black population. And that is because there has been what has been called the new migration, where a lot of Black folks have started moving back to the South, especially in the wake of, the era of the 2000s, the housing crisis, and the skyrocketing of land and housing and rent, because all of these factors typically are a little bit easier to navigate in southern states where land is it's likely to be 3 times as cheaper than it is in the northern states. So what's an interesting fact that you think is a result of some more post-slavery effects? And comment some questions below, because we're going to dive into more stuff this week, and I won't be traveling as much this week, thank God, but let me know what else you might want to see. That's all for now. I'm Aviola Girl. We'll see you later. Bye! Come on, butter.
Full-grown adults that can't swim, cycle, skate, backpack, take a gap year's vacation, play instruments, or speak multiple foreign language, just a lifetime of hustling and trying to lead survival mode. There are subtle poverty metrics that no one really talks about. And I'm reading this book right now about the upper class of Black America. And when I tell y'all they do exactly this, try to distance themselves from the other folks that look like them, that have any measurements or metrics about poverty, it's deep. I don't think we talk enough about class distinctions in the Black community, because listen, when it comes to the AKAs or the alphas or the brulees, or you feel me, they call them the links, the girlfriends, the old guard. Hey, listen, man, Martha's Vineyard or I didn't learn a lot. You know what I mean? Did y'all know that Martha Washington, you see what I'm saying? She only had one son, or one grandson, I should say. And that one grandson just happened to get married to an enslaved person. And they had this mixed race child. You feel me? Last name. I gotta look at the last name. This right here just on page 8. This is what it say right here. It says, talking to Evelyn Reed Sifax. That's the family last name, Sifax. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. But talking to Evelyn Reed Sifax at a Links meeting that my mother had brought me to, I learned one way in which some Black families, including her own, gain wealth in a place among the upper class. My family had owned 15 acres of the land where the Arlington National Cemetery now sits, Sifax explains as she recounted the history of her family, which can be traced back to Martha Custis, the mulatto child of First Lady Martha Washington's grandson, George Washington Parke Curtis, who owned the mansion that sits on the cemetery today. Curtis fathered Maria and Ariana Carter, one of the female house slaves, explains Sipfax, a well-to-do retired real estate broker who lives in Virginia. And in this book, when they say well-to-do, it's talking about a specific type of black people. It says, when Maria asked her father, who was still her owner, for permission to marry Charles Sipfax, a black slave who worked for her father and he released both from slavery and gave her a wedding and mansion, he offered her and her new husband 15 acres of the Arlington estate, the mansion and surrounding properties minus Maria Sipfax 15 acres. And this is how deep it is, right? This how deep the roots of the black aristocrats in America run. It was later given by Custis to his white daughter, Mary Custis, who eventually married Confederate soldier Robert E. Lee, the General Robert E. Lee, thus making the house a famous building in the southern state. The author is this light-skinned dude named Lawrence. May he rest in peace. Oh yeah, he gave us some. He gave us some what the folks call tea. Well, I'm a call it, he dropping jewels on here. It goes on to say, on my first trip to Washington with my family to the late 1960s, I remember my parents remarking that the Sipfax story was evidence that a black family's genealogy could be as relevant to our country's history as any white families that I might read about in school. The fact that the Sipfaxes were still residing in the community today made their story more real to me at the age. Since the time the Sipfax family had continued to gain wealth through other real estate holdings and through businesses and involved commercial and residential development and sales. Going all the way back to the Reconstruction era, there are black people that love to distance themselves from us that's stuck in a lifetime of hustling and trying to leave survival mode. Cultural competency, you know what I'm saying? These are two concepts that I feel like we should talk more about, especially when it comes to intra-relationships in the community. You feel what I'm saying? Or intra-communal relations amongst black people. Because, hey, the differences, you feel me, amongst class, amongst race, amongst different schools. Hey, listen, Spelman, Morehouse, and Howard, oh yeah, they deeply entrenched when it comes to the black elites. And I ain't talking about, you see what I'm saying, some folks that's like new money. I'm talking about old money that go back, you feel me, to literally like the 1870s. I'm on chapter 4 of this book right now. And when I tell y'all, when I'm done with it, I got a lot of content coming. Oh yeah, man. Education is elevation. Tell me what you think about this shirt too. More content coming.
Did you know that in 1993, Disney had to change the lyrics to the opening song of Aladdin because they were so racist that they were protested by the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee? The original lyrics to Arabian Nights describe the Middle East as a place where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face, further saying it's barbaric, but hey, it's home. The movie went on to make over $500 million and become a staple for children all throughout the United States. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of portrayals of stereotypes of Arab, Middle Eastern, and Muslim people, three groups often conflated while also being seen as backward, barbaric, and of course, uncivilized. Understanding the root causes of these biases and perceptions is essential to countering the rhetorical attacks against the Palestinian people that justify the occupations, sieges, and bombings that they are and have been victims of. And while it might seem weird to spark discourse right now with a children's movie like Aladdin, research shows that Islamophobia and by extension anti-Arab sentiment affects public opinion on American foreign policy, including but not limited to our perception of American intervention in Israel and Palestine. In Real Bad Arabs, How Hollywood Vilifies a People, author Jack Shaheen analyzes 1,000 films made since 1896 that portray Arab people. In 936 of these films, Arabs are portrayed negatively. By contrast, only 12 films were positive depictions, and mind you, this analyzed films that came out before 9/11 when anti-Arab discrimination became even more widespread. Shaheen argues that many of these ideas especially stem from the Orientalism of British and French authors who visited the region now known as the Middle East after the two empires took control of it from the Ottoman Empire, carving up the region to many of the nation states that exist today. But in terms of major motion pictures and industry grounded in the United States, anti-Arab stereotypes and tropes have almost always supported US agendas in that region. For example, the Oscar-winning historical epic movie Exodus came out in 1960 and depicted the foundational story of Israel told from the perspective of Jewish people arriving from Europe. The movie was based on a best-selling book that only came out a few years prior and has been credited with Americanizing the narrative of Israel by making that foundation story akin to the American colonist foundation story, finding new, undeveloped land and establishing their independence by taking up arms against the British and the dangerous native population. In the words of Shaheen, though, though, the movie's one-dimensional characterization of Palestinians and lack of showcasing their stories and perspectives introduced filmgoers to the Arab-Israeli conflict and peopled it with heroic Israelis and sleazy, brutal Arabs. And while you may have never heard of this random book or movie from 1960, even figures like President Obama have cited the author as an introduction or a starting point to his understanding of the Middle East. And going into the 2000s, Palestinian intellectuals like Edward Said have said that this story specifically still provides the main narrative model that dominates American thinking of Israel and Palestine. But this was only a starting point, as in the later years of the 20th century, real terror attacks by Arab extremists were dramatized and sensationalized to further preconceived ideas that saw Arabs and Islamic people as a whole as threat to peace and order in the West. For example, the plot of the 1977 movie Black Sunday revolves around an Israeli agent working with the FBI to stop a Palestinian terrorist who wants to blow up 80,000 attendees at the Super Bowl, including the President of the United States. And these notions played out in real wars themselves, like the infamous case of the Nayirah testimony, where a young girl completely lied about having seen Iraqi soldiers take babies out of incubators and leave them to die. And this false testimony was used to build public support for the Persian Gulf War by George Bush Sr. And like father, like son, as we all know, George Bush Jr. lied about Arab nations having weapons of mass destruction to justify the Iraq War. And my earlier claim holds true in that throughout the 2000s, countless war dramas came out that sensationalized the stories of US soldiers in the Middle East at the expense of furthering stereotypes about Arab and Muslim people. And this includes the opening installation of the biggest movie franchise of all time. In Marvel's Iron Man, which had a script that was approved by the Pentagon, the white American main character spends much of the movie kidnapped by an extremist group in the Middle East. And while the overall message of the movie included important commentary about war profiteering, the villainous Middle Eastern characters fit almost all the popular stereotypes exacerbated by the war on terror. In fact, in this post-9/11 period, hate crimes against Arab and Muslim people became 5 times more common than they were before. And we rarely come across depictions of Arab and Middle Eastern people in their full humanity, laughing, smiling, and being close with one another. Anything different about the culture of the region becomes mocked, demonized, and used as a talking point about the backwardness of the people in the Middle East. And even in the cases where there is something to be criticized about an Arab society, because of the racialization of these issues, the effort to support people on the ground in domestic social movements becomes overshadowed by the choice to invade and use military might to get what the West wants. It's the same civilizing mission that has long justified Western colonialism, imperialism, and intervention. And with this pop culture foundation framing most of our perspectives of the Middle East, it becomes clear why it's so easy for politicians to dehumanize Arab people more generally and Palestinians more specifically. And it's because a lot of us as Americans have already been indoctrinated to see people of that region as less than human. And if you haven't already done so, it's imperative to diagnose and deconstruct those beliefs. But did you learn something new, and do you have anything to add? Let me know in the comments and follow for more.
Check out this video.
Picture here is Virginia native Renee Bach. Renee claims to be on a mission from God to save the children in Africa, but ultimately she ended up unaliving over 105 children. And if you're wondering, no, she didn't serve any jail time for this.
I've talked on this page about how mission trips done in other countries are by and large modern day colonialism, and the story of Renee Bach is one of the prime examples of that. Mission trips, especially those done in other countries, are by and large modern day colonialism.
In 2007, Renee worked as a missionary at an orphanage in Africa. At the age of 19, she returned back home, and she decided that she wanted to start her own charity in Jinja. From 2010 to 2015, Renee ran an organization called Serving His Children. And at this nutrition unit, she took in 940 malnourished children. As you can see, Renee was medically treating these children, but Renee wasn't a doctor.
And why did she do this? Again, because she was called by God to save children in Africa. And my thing about missionaries, specifically white American missionaries, right? Of all the places in the world, of all the children starving in your own community, because they exist by the thousands, why does God consistently call them to go to Africa? Renee Bach could never do on American soil what she did in Africa without facing consequences. And while Ugandan mothers are mourning children who died under her care, we're not getting an update about how she's being held accountable. We're getting a 3-part HBO docuseries of her explaining why she didn't do anything wrong.
I think some of the most wild accusations that were made about me is that I killed 800 children. I was medically experimenting on children compared to Adolf Hitler, assumed to be part of the KKK. It's kind of like where to begin, you know?
And she's doing this alongside the impacted people stating the opposite.
Renee is being put up as an angel.
People back in America think she's awesome. They're giving her money.
And strangers like Renee bring death on the continent.
Let he who has never sinned be the first to pick a stone and throw at Irene.
These are the remnants of colonialism. The religious conviction to save people even if it leads to their death. And saying it was worth it because of the people that were saved despite the many lives lost. And this is also an issue of theodicy, which is again the kind of theology that wants to question, interrogate, or defend the goodness and justice of God in the face of the existence of evil. Because if she believes she was sent of God and ended up doing all that damage to those families and to those children, if she believes that God would be pleased despite the collateral damage of her white saviorism, what does this imply about the character of the God she claims to serve? Questions like this are in part why Dr. William R. Jones wrote the book and dared to pose the question, is God a white racist? Be sure to go back and watch the full Stitched video. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and as always, like and follow for more content.
10 things they never tell you about the drug dealer's daughter. 1, she loves Greek mythology. And by the time she learns to love anything more than herself, it's long dead. 2, she is 9 when she realizes she's got the blessing of being brought up in a contemporary concept. She's the first on her block to get a stay-at-home dad, Brad. He plays Barbies and dominoes, and he cooks, y'all. We got enough baking soda in my basement to open 10 bakeries. My daddy is a baker. The cakes, they sell so fast you never see them. Just the customers looking some kind of hungry, like they got a sweet tooth only my daddy can yank. And I swear, y'all, we gonna be rich. 3, none of her friends believe her until they all turn training bra and things start disappearing and reappearing in her house. First, Tanya's television set, her older brother's attention, then Danielle's 4-fingered ring and her father's retirement fund, finally, Danielle's whole mother. 4, the girl and her father and their family disappear into a new neighborhood. The drug dealer, the father, he never misses a play, a pageant, a slam, and they ain't rich. But they ain't in them projects no more either. 5, by the time I realize what we are, it's already too late. We are an urban novel you will skim over at Walmart, a 4-minute smirk on Fox 8's face. What would occur if Spike Lee and Quentin Tarantino made a film under Eazy-E's direction? The question Black America asks itself every Sunday. I am a bakery with nothing sweet left in it. 6, my father is killed. My father is shot point blank range in the back of the left ear one night, but you probably knew this was going to happen. Saying it out loud makes me feel better, makes this more real, less magic, makes this poem more 10 things you didn't know about Ciara Freeman, less 10 things about a cliche you can click your fucking teeth at. 7, some nights I put on my father's chalk outline and I teach it how to walk. My face is a haunted house my mother screams at from habit, not fear. Most days I'm an alley that no one will enter alone. 8, he is found with no jewelry, just his pocket watch. My baby tooth is snuggled inside. After his autopsy, it is returned to me chipped. 9, I disappear into my old neighborhood, the suburbs. I got an itch the suburbs just ain't got nails for. I find Danielle. She asks me, did I inherit any of my daddy's magic? I shake my head. She abracadabra something into her arms and says, you know, the drug dealer is supposed to die, right? 10, I know the stories. How magic can turn black men into myths, that the hood will turn a black man into a monster, and that Zeus made an exit wound big enough for his daughter to walk out of fully armored, and Athena, like most goddesses, never learned to love anything more than herself.
Hey, Scotty, aren't you line leader today? Yeah, who's asking? Vinny's asking, that's who. Look, I need to go somewhere. Destination. Girls' bathroom, I'm looking for somebody. No can do, it's not on the route. Hey, what do you mean it's not on the route? Are you line leader or not? I am the line leader, Vinny. And don't you ever forget that. All right? When I put my finger to my mouth and raise my hand, you better shut up and fall in line just like everybody else. Is that so? So it is. To the line leader, nothing is more important than the route. Yeah? How about you tell that to the Don? You think I'm scared of this piece? Or the Don? You know who makes the route, Vinny? Well, I'm sure Miss Broccolini does. Now, quickly explain what that has to do with me. You don't know what, do you? I've seen her eat lunch No mess. Not a drop spilled. Only thing keeping food in her mouth is a finger just like this. No baby says. I've seen her clean a whole salad, Vinny. Don't you lie to me. You saw her eating all the vegetables, even the broccoli. Why do you think they call her broccolini? Now, Vinny, you could shoot me. Yeah? Maybe you'll make it to the bathroom. Finish whatever playtime errand the Don has you running for him, right? But you'll have to answer to God for it. And before you do that, you'll answer to Miss Broccolini. Shit! Everybody knows you're looking for Tina, all right? But crossing Miss Broccolini is not the way to find her. Yeah, you're right. The Scholastic Book Fair's tomorrow, all right? Wait on the street as Greg's back in town. I thought he still had chickenpox. He's not contagious, so they're letting him back in. Listen. Greg's connected, all right? Black market Pokemon trade. I'm sure he knows somebody who could help you find Tina. And whoever peace, Johnny. Thanks, Scotty.
When you are burnt out, the remedy is not getting rest.
I tried to stitch this earlier, but Mercury in retrograde is really kicking my ass. So I'm not going to do it as detailed before. I'm going to give you the quick and dirty. I have a PhD in clinical psych. I used to be a therapist. I got really fucking burnt out, stopped doing the work. I do creativity coaching. I do consulting. I do events. And I really love what I do now. So let me give you the quick and dirty on how to navigate burnout. Also, obviously watch your video. It's super, super informative. Then come back here. Okay, so number 1, yes, please rest. But recognize that rest isn't enough, like she said. When you rest, we all think about like taking a nap or like, waiting till the weekend. Your resting actually has to be like a lot more active and a lot more intentional, focused on like regenerating how you feel, like how we actually know sleep is supposed to be. That's what you really need to focus on. So remember, rest is not this reward, not this thing you could do at the end. And so that might mean you have to take certain drastic measures to change that up. For me, I tried to rest by literally plopping my face into the couch right after I was done with work and not doing anything else. I tried vacations, I tried hanging out with friends. And at the end of it all, I actually ended up going to the hospital because I was suffering from such terrible chest pains. Waited for winter break to come around. I got COVID. That's not a restful time. And then when I got back to work, I told my boss I needed to take a leave of absence. I eventually quit my job 2 months later because like that resting still wasn't enough. I knew I was returning back to something that like, granted, I really liked my job. My burnout is like 10 years of grad school. Let's talk about, that's like another video. But I needed that time. And then I knew I needed to do something more drastic. So you have to decide what works for you. Like, do you have the money, the means, the space, things like that? I mean, then you can figure it out from there. Number 2, restructuring your life requires 3 things: accessing your inner voice, your inner critic, and your inner creative/inner child. Use your inner voice to say the loud part even louder. I don't like what I'm doing anymore. The stuff that I'm doing has no meaning. I don't feel like my life has any meaning anymore. I'm unhappy, I'm burnt out, whatever. Use it also to acknowledge the fact that the systems that be make it very, very difficult for you to restructure your life. And you never thought that you'd have to do it that way. You have to say that. Now, number 2 is accessing your inner critic, because your inner critic is already kind of working in the background. Your inner critic is the fear, the thing that stops you from doing what you truly want to do with your time, whether that's like having a new job or having new hobbies. So you have to say things like, I'm afraid to blank. I don't have enough blank. I'll never be able to blank. Say that shit out loud. Now return to your inner voice. Use that to determine your needs and your wants. They're both very important. So you might have needs as a disabled person, a neurodivergent person. You might just want a 4-day work week. You might want to just be able to pick up your kids on time. Speak your needs into existence. Then speak your wants into existence. That's your creative voice. And do not hold back. In my dream of dreams, I want to do blank, blank, blank. I don't care what you want to do. Throw ass, paint, I don't know. Go think about those things and then figure out how to do them. Do new things you've never done before. Do things that you haven't done in a long time, but you really, really miss. Do things with a friend. For me, I got back into baking. I returned to thinking about playing tennis. It's been like decades for me. I started DJing again. Like, go do those things. Start small. If it's hard, start small, but do those things. Keep this in mind. Creativity, just like rest, is not a reward. Our world tells us we do creativity things when you're young, when you have free time, when it's a rainy day. No, your access to your creativity is your life source to the things that make you happy every day. So why would we wait? Why would we wait to do those things? Finally, go find your community. Go find your people. Go find the people that are doing the things that you're doing or who have been talking about wanting to break out and do something different. I guarantee you there are going to be people in your life who don't understand the type of burnout you're going through or the ways that you're engaging in the things that you love to do. I'm not saying they're not your friends. That might not be the type of community they can be in right now. Everybody's on their own journey. Some people don't have burnout. Props. But yeah, that's part of what makes restructuring your life sustainable. Knowing that there are other people on your side on the journey with you. It's accountability, it's motivation, it's drive, it's support, it's happiness, it's all good stuff. We love community. Again, this is not an easy journey. It's not a linear journey, but it's a journey worth going through. And listen, I am on my last month of money. I'm 8 months out of work, basically 6 to 8 months out of work. And with that time I had off, that's when I had the ability to think about what it is that I wanted to do. And I wanted to focus on creativity and joy because that's what makes me happy. And that's why I'm doing that coaching. That's why I'm doing that consultation work. That's why I'm throwing events. Creativity is the main bulk of my content here. So, at least for now. So stick around, comment. If you have any questions about what it looks like to engage in that, let me know. I also run virtual community spaces where people can have that community that I'm talking about so that you can figure out how to access your creativity and your community, whichever way you see fit.
If Sexy Red is minstrel performance, then hip hop is minstrel performance. What you're doing is you're accidentally stumbling into an argument made by the book The New Jim Crow, an argument that I actually hate, but an argument that a lot of people agree with and co-sign, and we need to talk about it. And we also need to talk about why, if you're only isolating out Sexy Red, it's not because you believe it's minstrel, it's because she's a black woman and she's held up to a higher standard and a higher responsibility. The argument made in The New Jim Crow is that because rappers, gangster rappers, are often required to play up or embellish aspects of their lives even as their careers move on and they perhaps move out of those situations that were struggling, because they've made their career and continue their career based on embellished stories of things that are considered negative stereotypes or harmful aspects of the black community, that what they are doing is a minstrel performance. Rick Ross, drug lord Rick Ross, is not a drug lord. He's not moving. He's not the boss. He was a correctional officer at a prison facility. A$AP Rocky has a child with a billionaire and is a fashion model, but still makes videos of him running around New York City like he's really banging like that, right? Pusha T is in charge of an independent, well, not independent, but of a record label, and has not stopped rapping about selling coke for 20 years. Drake is an actor from Canada who was on a teen soap opera. If Sexy Red is minstrel for declaring herself Hood's hottest princess, it's all minstrel. She's not an exception. But the reason why people take the videos of Sexy Red or of Sukihana being particularly vulgar or target people like Meg, and they're not calling Meg minstrel, but target out female rappers for this whenever female rappers engage in the same acts as male rappers and they talk about sex or things that people like to personally interpret as negative aspects of the black community. She's minstrel. And the dudes aren't, because black women are held up to a higher standard. And either you say that it's all minstrel, any sort of performance of negative stereotypes within the community, it's they clone Tyrone, this is an act, this is all minstrel, or it's an actual reflection in an embellished way or a catchy way that is reflects upon what life is actually like for a lot of people and is exploited for profit by record labels, or you're targeting black women. You kind of have to pick what you're doing here. I don't like the argument. I don't consider hip hop to be minstrel. I do consider it to be exploitative, but I don't consider it minstrel. Anyhow, I think it's interesting, and I just think that everyone targeting Sexyy Red out like she's doing a unique aspect of hip-hop or a uniquely damaging thing as just being part of the responsibility that we're putting on Black women that we don't put on every other aspect of this system.
How powerful we are on this app when we collectively agree, correct?
Yes, these are all very good ideas. And 8 years ago, before I did the research on how to get somebody onto the ballot, I thought it was that easy too. Reality is, there's rules to this shit. I'm not gonna say it's impossible because miracles happen every day, right? But baby, believe me when I tell you, we gonna need a motherfucking miracle. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, let me say this. Voting is a group project, so what I do affects you and what you do affects me. Which is why I try to approach voting from an educated point of view and not an emotional one. I know we all feel some kind of way about what is going on in the world right now and our government's complicity in it. But what I need y'all to understand is that this is not a party issue. This is an American issue. America is bipartisan on its participation in supporting Israel monetarily. That monetary compensation comes from Congress more than it comes from the president. The House of Representatives, which we have the ability to replace every 2 years, but we don't do it because we don't show up for midterms, is who controls our budget. And I honestly think that is where we need to direct our fury. But since everybody wants to talk about the president, let's get into it. The good news is this information is available to every American who has internet access for free. The bad news is once you access this information, you're going to realize just how far behind we are and how it's literally damn near impossible for you to get a new person onto the primary ballot to then win the primary and then become the nominee in the general election. Y'all forgot about primaries and delegates and superdelegates, huh? You also forget that, yes, we can move mountains on this app, but the majority of our electorate, 52% of them, are over the age of 50 and are not on this app. So they don't know what the fuck we talking about over here. But anyway, let's get into it. I'm not trying to underestimate anybody's intelligence, but I have to say this just in case you don't know. In order to become the president of the United States, you have to garner 270 electoral college votes out of the 538 electoral college votes that are available. To know how many electoral college votes your state has, think about how many representatives you have in the House of Representatives. The numbers are the same. Now, I volunteered as tribute and did the research on all the states that have double-digit electoral vote counts. So if a state has more than 10 electoral college votes, I have the numbers on it, but I'm not going to bore you with all of them. Let's just go with the big ones first. Let's start with California. Again, this information is available to everyone for free. You can go to Ballotpedia and look this up, and they have a little spreadsheet that they broke everything down. But if you want to read all the processes for yourself, you go over to this source link, and it will take you to the election, Secretary of State election division of whatever state you're looking at. Okay, so here we are at California. Okay, as you can see here, there are two methods by which a person can have their name put on the ballot for the primary. By determination of the Secretary of State that the person is a generally recognized candidate, or by circulating nomination papers, which basically means signing petitions that say you want this person to run for president. To qualify as a generally advocated for or recognized candidate, you have to meet one of the following criteria. You have to qualify for funding under the FEC Act. You have to appear as a candidate in a debate by a permitted political party that's qualified in that state to participate in the primary election. So all that nonsense running under the birthday party or the unicorn party and all that kind of stuff, that shit does not count. You have to have placed or qualified for placement on a presidential primary ballot in another state. You can be a candidate or qualified to be a candidate in a caucus of a major or minor ballot qualified political party in another state. Or you can have a current presidential campaign internet website or web page that is hosted by either the candidate or the qualified political party, and a written request submitted to the Secretary of State requesting the candidate be placed on the presidential primary ballot. So right now on the Democratic side, we only have Joe Biden, Marianne Williamson. So those are the only two people who qualify as generally advocated for or recognized candidates on the Democratic side. So if you want somebody new, they're going to have to go through this next procedure, which is the circulation of nomination papers for candidates, basically signing a petition to say you want this person to run for president. In California, you have to get 1% of the registered party members, or 500 from each congressional district. California has 40 Democratic congressional districts, so you will have to get 500 signatures from each of those 40 districts to qualify, or 1% of the registered party, whichever number is lesser. The period for circulating these petitions is from November 6th, 2023 through December 15th, 2023. So that is in literally like 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks to organize, get people together in each one of those Democratic congressional districts and get 500 signatures for whoever the new person is you want to put on the ballot. And they have to be turned in on December 15th. And again, this is just California's rules. So for us to get a new candidate on the primary ballot in every single state in this country is going to take a gargantuan amount of work. And here's some more bad news. I want you to look at Nevada and New Hampshire, right? The filing dates are over here. 10/16 and 10/27. Those, 10/16 has already passed. 10/27 is passing this week. So Nevada and New Hampshire are already out of the game. So that's 2 states that cannot even vote on a new person. So their chances of winning the primary have already been shot. And I know you're thinking, well, what if they run independent? Not the American Independent Party, because that is a whole nother Nazi situation, but as an independent person. In California, nomination papers for an office other than a statewide office have to be signed by not less in number than 3% of the entire number of registered voters in the area at the time of the close of registration prior to the preceding general election. So if we hop over here to see how many registered voters California has, they have 21,980,768 registered voters as of February 10th of this year. 3% of that number is 659,423 signatures you would have to get from the people of the state of California, and you would have to turn that in by August 9th of 2024 for that person to be on the ballot in that state. And again, these are just California's rules. The rules are different per each state in this country. So what I'm trying to express to y'all is the easier goal is to go after Congress, because 1, that's just your state, and 2, that's who actually controls our budget and who keeps sending this money to fund the genocide over there. The other thing I want to stress to you is this. Again, you have to consider the ages of our electorate in this country. 18 to 29 only makes up 17%, and that's the majority of people on this app. Then my age group right here, 30 to 49, we are only 31% of the electorate. Then 50 to 64 is 28% of the electorate. Then 65 and up is 24. So when you add these two together, that's 50 and up. That is 52% of our voting public in this country. And most of those people are not on this app. So good luck getting your great Aunt Martha to vote for anybody new when Joe Biden is sitting right there. Y'all, we can fix a lot of shit in this country, but it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, and it's going to take knowing what the fuck we're doing and what we're talking about when we get on this app to encourage people to take action. And right now, this is just my personal opinion, but I do not think discouraging people from voting for the candidate that we have right now is the right move. Here's why. A lot of y'all don't remember how it went down in 2016, but we are literally at that same place where people are feeling like they don't have a choice. They don't have an option. And so they will opt to stay home instead of going out to vote for somebody that makes them icky feeling. But that is how we got Donald Trump in 2016. Now, I don't think he gonna even make it to their primary. I don't think he's gonna make it to the ballot because these cases and these indictments is coming up on his ass. But the next person that they have in line is Ron DeSantis. And do you want Ron motherfucking DeSantis as your president? Because guess what? He's not gonna care about stopping the funding over there to Israel. He's gonna send them more because again, all they see is white people winning, and that is what they want. So you have to strategize. We have to put our feelings aside and know that it is not a moral failing to do what you need to do in order to do what you want to do down the road. It is not a moral failing to keep the GOP at bay in order to get their asses out of our legislature in 2026 and in 2028 in order to be able to help the people of Palestine not have any more of this shit going on them. Because if we get rid of the people in Congress, then we can stop the funding to Israel.
I said this in my last video. We need more Ilhans. We need more Rashidas. We need more Ayanas. We need more Corys. We need more Jasmines. We need more of the people who are not afraid to stand up in Congress and say this is bullshit. The president does not have the power y'all think he has. That power is in Congress, and Congress is so much more capturable for us if you would just get your ass up and vote in midterms and stop putting all your eggs in the goddamn presidential election. It is not about a president. This is about Congress. Vote, ho!
If you got offered $1 million to on the spot start talking about a certain topic with no breaks for 30 minutes, what would you start talking about?
Zombies were never actually monsters, they were victims. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Sarah. I talk about art. Let's talk about the very disturbing history of one of the most popular icons in pop culture. I'll give you a quick spoiler though, it's something to do with slavery. For some context, let's rewind back to 17th century modern day Haiti. At the time, this was a French colony that instituted slavery. They would produce about 40% of sugar and 60% of coffee imported to Europe. And to keep up with all this demand, they imported 800,000 Africans. Enslaved people endured some of the harshest conditions. Brutality beyond human comprehension. They would literally be worked to death. Through the influence of African traditional religions held by enslaved people and influences of Catholic traditions, you saw the development of the religion Vodou. According to Haitian folklore, a zombie was a person whose soul had been captured by a boko. This zombie would need no food, no sleep, and would just be forced into unending labor. Basically a slave, right? This extreme brutality endured by slaves would mean that many of them would unfortunately take their own lives. Death would literally be seen as the only way of escape, and now there became a fear of enslavement even after death. The concept of zombies was literally built off the trauma of enslaved people. 1804, Haiti finally gains its independence, but a few years later it's occupied by one of the biggest terrorist organizations, the US military. 1915 American invasion meant that now America was exposed to the ideas of zombies. White Zombie in 1932 would become the first movie to feature zombies. It did include a lot of references to Haitian culture, but it was very whitewashed and the victim was obviously a white woman. Night of the Living Dead from 1968 is where you really see that turn. It was a bunch of corpses that chased the living, and even though they weren't called zombies in the movies, the audience saw them as. You see this complete disconnection from Haitian culture. From then on, zombies really became a vehicle to critique social ills, whether that be consumption, capitalism, pandemics, a bunch of racism. A lot of people in my own comment section were giving interpretation to what modern zombies represent. Even though they're all incredibly interesting, it's important to not erase the origins of zombies. They are traumatized victims of colonialism later appropriated and turned into monsters by colonizers.
An XXL and a 2X. They are cut from two.
I wrote an entire book about plus size fashion called The Power of Plus, and not only can I confirm what Samira is saying in this video, but I can also add that brands are intentionally trying to trick you when they say their plus size line goes up to an XXL. Samira explains this in her video, so go and watch that first, but essentially designers will market an XXL versus a 2X differently because they're cut from different bodies. What this means is when a designer is designing a straight size line, which would be up to a size 12-14, they will find a size 2-4 or sometimes 0 fit model and grade up each size. That essentially means they add 2 inches per size. So they add 2 inches to the size 0 model to get a size small. 2 inches more gets you a medium. 2 inches more gets you a large, and so on. However, when you get into a 2X, you have to get different size fit models of a bigger size, obviously, and that's where this divide starts. Designers don't want to use plus size fit models because it's expensive. In fact, it's one of the most expensive parts of designing for plus size bodies. So instead of getting a size 14, 16 fit model who would be a 2X, 3X, they just grade up from that size 0-2 fit model by adding 2 inches to the size large to get an XXL. This is why an XXL fits different than a 2X and why one of them is still considered a straight size versus one of them is considered a plus size. In fact, what you'll often see is plus sizes will start at a 1X, which will typically be a size 14, a 2X being a 16, 18, and so on. So you can see these differences already in how they're marketed when a brand actually has both plus and straight sizes. But this is the tricky part, or not the tricky part, but the part they're trying to trick you with. Designers want you to think that an XXL is the same as a 2X. That's not the case, but they're marketing it that way so that they can seem kind of inclusive, I guess. And unfortunately, people fall for it because they just don't know better. Designers know this, so they play into it. An XXL is not plus size. A 2X is part of a plus size line, sure, but an XXL is not the same.
white people think they're the only audience.
New phenomenon I'm seeing that is further proving me correct. And I want y'all to know I'm talking about American white people before y'all jump me. Because there's always a European that's like, but that's American white people. Our white people are still racist, but that's a conversation for another day. So by now we all know Usher's headlining the Super Bowl in February. Woohoo! But I've seen a lot of like white anime fans be like, oh my god, like he has to play Daddy's Home. Like we made him trending again. We made him more famous. Like da da da. But they didn't. Like I'm sorry, that song, yes, is trending on TikTok, but you are not the reason Usher is playing the Super Bowl. And like I'm a huge football fan as well as an anime nerd, so these two combining specifically I thought might be a good thing, but like y'all are actually pissing me off. Artists don't get chosen for the Super Bowl because they're trending on TikTok, even in recent years. And I need you to consider the audience that the NFL is catering to. It's like white dads most of the time. That's like primary audience for football. They don't care what's trending on TikTok. You get picked for the Super Bowl because you're a phenomenal artist. Like your name has to be huge. You have to have made a huge impact on the music industry. You're not gonna pick Odatari to headline the Super Bowl because he's trending on TikTok. No shade, I actually like his music. Like Rihanna wasn't trending on TikTok when she did the Super Bowl. Eminem wasn't trending on TikTok. Snoop Dogg wasn't trending on TikTok. Beyonce wasn't trending on TikTok. Well, that was before TikTok. But like, you know what I'm saying? They're not worried about who's trendy. They're worried about how many hits you have, how many people you can reach in the audience that know your music. And that's what I mean when I say like, white people think that they're the only audience, also in the sense that like stars within the black community who have insane reach, like Usher's not only for black people, like he has an insane reach outside of the black community. But yeah, like if they don't see and recognize his impact, they just don't think he's impactful at all. And like Usher is a superstar. Like the man's discography is insane. And I was interacting with the posts that were like, oh, I really want him to like bring out Gojo as a backup dancer, or like put Gojo on the screen and sing this song. Like I thought it was funny until I genuinely saw people in the comment section being like, oh my god, like if it wasn't for JJK fans, he like wouldn't be as famous. Huh? And they were like dead serious too. But white people would be like, oh, I only ever heard like 3 Usher songs on the radio sometimes, so he can't be that big. Like he was big for his time. Like you don't actually understand how big of a star that man is. Like this app has officially started to make me feel old because like the children are seeing people who were like A-list celebs at the peak of their career, and honestly still A-list celebrities, and being like, we made them famous, we made them trend. You didn't do shit. Usher's career is doing just fine without the JJK fandom, I promise you.
You know, it legitimately is all Reagan's fault. So when you say all, like, do you mean the war on drugs?
But didn't Nixon start that?
Right. But think about it like this, right? Think like Nixon, A New Hope, Reagan, Empire Strikes Back. You see what I'm saying? I see. You ever notice how like in the last 35, 40 years, corporations have been gaining more and more power within like government policy making or infrastructure and things like that? Yeah, it kind of started with him too.
What about the trickle down economics?
What about it?
Well, that worked, right? But I always hear about like what a great job he did with the economy.
The wealth gap widened more in his 8 years than any other time in American history.
But would you consider him like as bad as somebody like Trump or something like that?
He was the darling of certain fundamentalists.
What does that mean?
I mean, he was nicer or perceived as nicer than Trump. He had more of a decorum about him.
But no, man, like the rise of Christian fundamentalism, like he was like their poster boy.
I mean, do you think he was a friend of the unions? Fuck no. One of his first major actions as president was firing like 11,000 air traffic controllers.
11,000?
Yeah.
You know, I heard about that. What was the effect of that?
Okay, well, at the time, there really hadn't been that forceful of a response from the federal government regarding workers' rights. Striking workers striking for a better pay. Now, the air traffic controllers fell under federal obligation, so they technically weren't allowed to go on strike. But Reagan's response to their going on strike by firing all of them who refused to cross the picket line, it sent a message to all those major corporations, like all of the major big ones, that this is okay. Oh, we can respond that forcefully as well. We can take extra steps in order to discourage everybody going on strike for better pay. They took their lead from this man, and because of that, union work, labor work took a major hit, and it took a very long time for them to kind of regain footing regarding that.
And then there's single mothers.
Oh God, what did he say about them? Basically invented, coined, popularized a term called welfare queens. And it was this idea, this caricature that, quite frankly, was nowhere near as prevalent as he seemed to want it to make it out to be. But it was this caricature of a low-income mother who was using the government to satisfy her personal needs that had nothing to do with taking care of her kids. She was just being lazy. She was just being disrespectful, didn't really appreciate the money that she was getting from the government. She wasn't using it to be a mother. She was using it for her own lavish lifestyle. That was spread about every low-income mother out there in America, and it created this stigma about the single mother.
See, I was always confused about this because he won both elections by so much.
Check out his approval ratings among minorities in both of those elections.
I also hear his name in relation a lot to the AIDS epidemic that started like in the 80s and has continued to this day. Obviously not as bad today, but what was going on with him regarding the AIDS crisis?
What was his response to gay people dying by the thousands?
Yeah, what was his response? Oh God, that was his response.
That's he didn't do anything.
Wow,
he didn't do anything.
That's terrible.
He didn't do anything.
God.
Exactly.
This guy sounds like quite a character.
Trust me, there is a reason why a lot of people consider him a whole ass supervillain.
Well, it sounds like we could be going on all day about all the crappy stuff that he did. Is there anything else that you really want to get out now?
Student debt.
You're joking. No. You're
That's his fault you, man. Too? That's just what I'm saying. Lex Luthor ain't got shit on him.
Everyone, but specifically those in my community, black folks. Y'all have so much venom for down low gay men when y'all be the ones raising them. I hate that most conversations surrounding gay people that are undercover are about some man who knows that he's gay and still chooses to marry a woman while fucking men on the side. Because while that does happen and it is fucked up, that is nowhere near the full picture of living in a society that demonizes homosexuality to the point that most of us try to assimilate at some point. Because let's be clear, it's not just gay men, it's lesbians too. Some gay people do date the opposite sex to conceal their sexualities. Some do it because they don't even realize they're queer until they have some sort of awakening. Some of us don't date the opposite sex at all. We have same-sex partners that we call roommates or friend. And lastly, some use religion and church to conceal their sexualities and call themselves ex-gay, word to Jackie Hill Perry. Regardless of what being undercover looks like, it is most always motivated by a fear of living in a society that basically enforces the belief that queer people shouldn't exist. When it comes to little black boys specifically, from the day they gain awareness, they are indoctrinated with the belief that being gay or even just feminine is the worst possible thing for them to be. If they do show any signs of being gay or soft, they are often beaten, berated, or told that they're going to spend eternity getting teabagged by Satan. Gay black men can't even exist on public platforms without being told by black people that they are agents of white supremacy sent to push an agenda. And I'm not defending DL men that lie and cheat. Some of them cause great harm both in and outside of the queer community. I am simply saying that to the point that y'all continue creating a society that is unsafe for queer people, you can't act bewildered that some of us don't feel safe enough to be queer.
Somebody come look at this.
And it's a song called Jericho. I don't know why, but I can't stop listening to it. Oh, I'm so hypnotized. This is Lucifer. He is singing to a generation, trying to get us to identify with him.
I've talked here about how white supremacy and Christian supremacy function in the American context, right? And this woman, W. Rose Worship or whatever, is a great example of that. She's the woman who was so mesmerized by a Nico song that she claimed the only reason this could be is because it's demonic. So she made a Christian remix of the song in the exact same tone.
Hi. I've been saved by grace. I got Jesus on my mind and his blood running through my veins.
And it doesn't even make sense theologically because why is Jesus' blood running through your veins? But I digress. She was called out for this behavior because it's white supremacy at work. It's anti-black and she said the lyrics were demonic. I personally asked her as a theologian to point out one lyric in a song that was demonic and she was unable to do so. And now she's sitting in church spewing the same bigotry to a congregation of people. Because white evangelical Christians believe that they're being persecuted, they take being held accountable and being called out as proof that they're doing something right. So instead of taking accountability for her anti-black behavior, she's going to preach preach about how she was attacked for standing up for the word of God.
I am famous on TikTok as a colonizer, white supremacist, racist, fake Christian. I've been called Jezebel. I've been called everything by Christians and non-Christians. And that's what happens when you hit demonic veins. There's gonna be backlash.
And now she's not only demonized black music, a practice that goes back to, you guessed it, slavery. She has pinned an entire congregation of predominantly white Christians against a black artist. I want to be very clear, in this climate that is an act of violence. Inigo's already black and genderless, and now they're being flagged as satanic. And Inigo's being constantly misgendered by this woman, another act of violence. When all they did was make a song about a Bible story, a nod to their upbringing in church spaces.
On top of that, gospel, too. I grew up in the church. I was a very avid churchgoer. Outside of that, I didn't really have an outlet for my music, so I poured it all into worship, essentially. My first solo, I was 5 years old, and I sang Happy Birthday, Jesus.
Now this woman is releasing a remix to streaming platforms, of course without Inigo's consent, and is apparently working on a music video as well.
He won't ever fall, never stumble. He's coming soon, so you better get humble. Bend your knee or like Jericho crumble.
We were working on a music video for it. So that's really exciting. Just a homemade one with some friends helping us out.
This is the mindset of a colonizer. Inigo did it and it's evil, so now she's going to take it, whitewash it, and Christianize it and make it better. So she demonizes the original song and gets to make money off the very thing that she called evil. Because we know that none of her original work has gone nearly as viral as the virality she got from the demonization of a black artist. The feeling that she felt welling up on the inside when she heard Inigo's song for the first time is white discomfort and internalized prejudice. And the worst part about all this is, if she does watch this video, it's going to further confirm to her that she was sent by the white man she was pointing to on her wall.
He moves, he makes all hell rumble. He won't ever fall, never stumble.
Oh my God, corny, lame, boo, tomato, I'm throwing tomatoes.
Y'all, please go stream Jericho by Inigo today and run it up one time. Love and light to you all, and as always, like and follow for more content. His blood running through my veins. Hey, get the
As a tennis player, you are a performer. You're older people.
There is something so insidious about a white woman coming to a press conference to cry for the cameras after losing to a player who is nearly half her age, after this white woman antagonized that 19-year-old for the better part of 3 hours. Laura Sigmund played Coco Gauff yesterday in the US Open, and she lost to Coco even after she did this entire thing for nearly 3 hours, where she purposely slowed down the game in between points to try to get into Coco's head. So in times when she's supposed to get ready for the serve, she's going to get her towel. When they're supposed to be drinking water, she's going to sit down, which is against the rules. It was so bad that she got a time violation, which is like pretty uncommon for professional tennis because people know the rules, or they should. The thing about Laura Sigmund is that she absolutely knew the rules, and she purposely broke them as a way to try to get into Coco's head because she knew that these are such, insignificant rules that no one ever breaks, that like the ref might not call them out. And luckily for her, the ref really fucking didn't. The only time she called it out was for the singular time violation, even though she broke those rules several times over. Laura Sigmund, old head Laura Sigmund, has been playing tennis for longer than Coco Gauff has been able to operate a toilet. I mean that very literally. Coco Gauff was born in 2004. Laura Sigmund went pro in 2006. Coco was 2. Okay, this lady's been pro for 17 years. Coco went pro in 2018. She's been pro for 5 years. She went pro at 14. Okay, this lady's career has lasted 3 times as long as Coco's, and she's nearly twice Coco's age. And somehow she's forgotten the rules to the game that she's been playing for longer than Coco's been alive. Clearly, the plan from Laura was that she was going to break procedural rules. That was going to get under Coco's skin, and then as a result, Coco was going to make unforced errors because she was preoccupied with the fact that her opponent was breaking the rules. The issue being that that's not what actually went to plan. Coco began speaking up about how Laura was breaking rules repeatedly, to the point where the crowd could hear, and then she even called it out to the ref themselves about how the ref was not doing their job properly. This turned the tides of the crowd, because now everyone's picking up on, hey, yeah, these are rules of tennis, and Laura is repeatedly breaking them, and she's been pro for almost 20 years, so she knows better, but she's not doing better. The reason why Laura Sigmund is crying has nothing to do with Coco Gauff, has nothing to do with the crowd, frankly, even the referee. It has everything to do with the fact that she miscalculated the risk associated with that stupid game she tried to play, and now it's all backfiring in her face and she's upset about it. If your stupid little, slow the game down plan is successful, then you win the match, you go on to the next round. Cool. If it's unsuccessful, not only do you lose the match, you also tarnish your barely existing reputation. And the latter is what took place, and she's not excited about it. That's not any of our problems. That literally has nothing to do with anybody. If you play stupid games, Laura, at 35 years old, if you're going to play stupid games, you genuinely have to grapple with the reality that you're going to win a stupid prize. And for the audience and the people watching who see this white woman, brought to tears and then feel some sort of sadness associated with her, this is a play. This is a part of a playbook that white women have utilized for generations. Laura is not confused about this playbook, and she's doing it purposefully to try to obfuscate the fact that she's in this position because of her own making.
You will ask men how their day was. They will tell you fine, and then 2 hours later...
I don't speak for all men, but I am a man speaking. I might as well get paid for this trauma, so this video gonna be at least a minute long. So I live in the United States of America in the Southeast in Georgia, and many of my days are trauma-filled. A whole lot less now than it was when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. Oh yeah, I'm black. And bringing up the interactions that paralyzed me emotionally is not really something that I wanted to do. I used to be a custodian in public schools for over a decade, and these schools would be filled with hundreds of people. A lot of students, a lot of adults, hundreds of people walking to and fro all the time, all day long. Now, whenever I would round a corner or enter a classroom, a teacher would jump and exclaim, like, "Oh, this will happen to me every day, multiple times a day for several years." And their response would be, "Oh, you scared me." Now, you might have been scared, but I ain't scared you. Now, the characters and the location ain't important, so don't even worry about that, because it happened all the time, and yeah, that don't even matter. So one day after school, I'm in the classroom cleaning up, as I would, like a custodian, with another one of my colleagues, and half of the lights in the room are off, because why we wasting these folks' light bill? Me and my partner cleaning, teacher walk in, flip on one side of the lights. Oh my gosh, I didn't see you all. We shrug it off like, okay, this happens every day. So she went about her business getting stuff out of the classroom. She leave the classroom, asks us if we want that half of the lights turned back off. We say yeah, she cut the lights off, we keep it moving. End of the day, go home, go to sleep. Come in to work the next day, administrator says, "Hey, can I see you in the office?" I was like, "Cool, I'll be there in a minute." I walk into the office past a panel of people. I'm talking about administrators, assistant principal, and somebody from the county. They gonna ask me, why were you and Redacted in a closed classroom together with the lights off? Come on, bruh, here you go. The Redacted is a man, by the way, but here you go. I say, cleaning up. Then the principal asks, why did you wait until the teacher entered the classroom and jump up to startle her? The principal continues, "Hey, this is serious, and we really want to get down to the bottom of why you thought it was a good idea to startle this teacher." She said she felt threatened and unsafe, and she doesn't know if she can continue working in these conditions with me there. I'll respond with, now she might have been startled, but I didn't startle her. Oh, I forgot to mention the officer standing outside. Now I'm about to lose my job and possibly be detained just for doing my job. But mind you, this ain't the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th time this done happened to me. So yeah, it's traumatic, but it's regular, like this my life. And I just gotta handle the situation, deal with it, and keep on moving. So even though that was a small thing to me at the time that I was going through it, when I look back on it now, all of those instances were worth talking about and discussing. But at the time, I ain't really see it like that.
Lost the opportunity because you want to be with that man?
This is just really annoying, because if this is not a rumor and there's a chance that this is true, this just proves everything Will Smith has been saying before the Oscar slap situation. And let me just break it down for you. Now, I hate DDG more than the average person. But I feel like if Halle were to have gotten pregnant by this man, do you really think she deserves to get her nomination removed? No. I know for a fact if Halle was, nothing would have been done. Simple as that. Because I know for a fact if Taylor Swift was not a singer, but an actress, and she was doing all the stuff she had already been doing with that boy, I know for a fact she still would have accepted her Oscar. I just feel like Will Smith has already touched on this before. He had stated way before the Oscar slap situation that the Oscars has been dubbing and undermining the talent amongst the black community for the longest time, to the point I remember there was points of time there would be like no black nominees in the Oscars. Like it would be barely any, like a scoop of black people in the Oscar nominations, and he called them out one too many times, to the point that there was like a few years he didn't go before he got banned. He was not going because they would not nominate black people, and these black people would give outstanding performances and they would not be seen in the nominations whatsoever, and he talked about it. And this just proves, if this rumor is actually not a rumor and it's true that Halle Bailey, got her nomination removed because there are alleging that she is pregnant, not even knowing that she's actually pregnant, they're just assuming, that is just discriminatory. There's nothing that anyone can ever say, because we can talk about all the people who should have been banned, should have gotten their nominations removed, because the amount of predators and the amount of assaulters that stood up there and received their Oscar, search up the list, there's a whole list about it, you will be shocked. You will be shocked. And this just proves that the Oscars don't really, it's not a place for us folk. And I suggest, obviously I'm not an actress, so my say doesn't really matter, but in a few years I really hope that we just stop going to that event, because they have proved to us one too many times that they do not respect us as people, and this is not a place for us to be at, period. Because there should be no way she should be shamed because she is pregnant. Yes, the situation is toxic, but let me tell you one thing. It is nobody's business but theirs. Because we all saw the little girls lining up to go watch The Little Mermaid. We all saw the impact Halle Bailey had on those little black girls, including me, because I was hype. So this is just nasty. If this is true, this is all alleged. The Oscars need some explaining to do, because this is nasty.
A lot of black and brown people treat the LGBTQ community how white people treat them, because they get an opportunity to participate in a system of oppression that they're usually not allowed to join in on. And a lot of people aren't actually against oppression and discrimination, they're against being the victims of it. Which is why you'll see white women screaming about equal pay till they're blue in the face, but they will be getting paid more than black and brown women, and they will be getting paid more than certain ethnicities of men. Okay? Because it's not actually about fixing a system and making sure it's equal across the board and there's equity. No, it's about the individual and their personal problems, not about fixing the system. Which is why black men will scream about police brutality and like being racially profiled, but will not care when that happens to black women. Literally will not care. Will not spare a thought for things like maternal mortality rate, because they're not actually bothered about black people in general, they're bothered about themselves. Which is why when black people start getting money, they start voting Conservative, or if you're in America, Republican, because it was never about the collective, it was always about the individual. I feel like black women will do better because they finally get to participate in the idea of femininity and womanhood, because they can now contrast themselves against trans women and say, we're not like them, see, we are real women. And that this whole thing will never work, because you are only strengthening the systems of oppression. I saw a TikTok from this girl and she was like, not everything needs to be LGBTQ. Those were literally the words. What does that even mean? When she was asked in her comment section, she was saying how, oh, like they're in the commercials on TV, they're in TV shows, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and white people will call us diversity hires. They'll say that we're on every single TV show, we're on every poster, we're everywhere. You are literally using the language of the oppressor. And when they are done with the LGBT community, they will come for you. Okay, because while you were busy pointing fingers, they were sneaking up behind you.
So in another episode of Why Do We Talk About History, Why Does It Matter, and How Does It Impact Us Today, Germany matches DNA from skulls stolen from African colony to living relatives. Let's get started and learn something new. Now, if you've been here for a minute, a couple months ago, I talked about how those skulls that were taken from Namibia and Tanzania by German colonizers and taken to Germany to experiment on so they could advance racial hierarchy, yeah, these are the same skulls. Researchers in Berlin have identified living relatives of people whose remains were stolen from Tanzania and taken to Germany for scientific experiment. Berlin's Museum of Prehistory and Early History has been carrying out research since 2017 on about 1,100 skulls. 1,100 skulls that were taken from what was then known as German East Africa. The museum announced last month, September, that DNA analysis had provided a clear link to living descendants in Tanzania, hailing the find a small miracle. The 1,100 skulls were part of a collection of over 7,000 skulls, and they were acquired by the museum from a Berlin hospital in 2011. Many of them were part of a collection assembled by the doctor and anthropologist Felix von Luschen during German colonial rule. They said that the remains are thought to have been looted from cemeteries and other burial sites around the world and brought to Germany for scientific experiments. German East Africa included present-day Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania, and part of Mozambique. The museum said its researchers were able to gather enough information on 8 of the skulls to merit a search for specific descendants. So at first I thought, and probably what you're thinking, like descendants, so somebody's cousin's cousin's cousin. No. For one skull, a complete genetic match was found with a man still alive today. The title Akita on the skull indicated that it belonged to a high-ranking advisor to the Mangi Meli, a powerful leader of the Chaga ethnic group in the late 1800s. The DNA sample provided a direct match with a descendant of Akita, and they confirmed that with 8 other skulls. And just a quick reminder, it's only been since the early 2000s that Germany admitted to what they did in Africa, and they slowly and gradually admitted it until all the evidence was out and they couldn't deny it anymore. Germany is responsible for mass killings of indigenous Herero and Nama people in what is considered the first genocide of the 20th century. I have a video on this if you want to watch it, or just Google it. I promise you'll learn something new. And it wasn't until 2021, 2 years ago, when Germany officially acknowledged that it had committed genocide in Namibia and promised $1 billion in financial support for descendants of the victims. I hope you learned something new.
My family fought to save their farm under this flag. Who was working that farm? My family was. Who was working the farm? They were poor. Do you know how much a slave cost back then?
There's actually a knowable answer to that question. By 1860, at the time of the Civil War, enslaved people's value was somewhere between $200 on the low end all the way up to $2,000. So we're talking about, in today's dollars, maybe somewhere between $2,400 and, like $50,000. There are even some estimates that say that some enslaved people were valued at somewhere around $180,000 in today's dollars. So you can think of it basically like owning a car. And about 1.6% of Southern families owned more than 200 slaves, like having like a whole car dealership. But about 20 to 25% of Southerners at the time of the Civil War owned at least one enslaved person. It's like basically living in a society where wealthy people all have cars. Well, what do all the people who don't have cars want? A car. And even if a family worked on a small farm and didn't have enslaved people, what do you think their goal was? Their goal was to earn enough money to be able to buy people, to buy humans to do the work. It's not like families didn't aspire to have enslaved people. Why do you think that Southern whites were willing to go to war, to literally go to war against the United States for slavery? Because remember, every single state that seceded, all 11 of them, said explicitly, we're doing this to preserve slavery. Well, why would somebody who's on a small farm want to fight to preserve slavery? Because their aspiration was to become a major planter, which means a major slave owner. That's what they all wanted to do. That's what they all aspired to do. And they also wanted to defend the system whereby they couldn't be enslaved. Only Africans could, only black people. And so that system of hierarchy that allowed any white person, no matter how rich or poor, to be superior to any black person, and for that black person to be captured and treated as property, and their children and their children's children owned by a white person. This is a system that benefited every single white person in the South. And by the way, every white person in the North too. Because even if you weren't a slave owner, you benefited from the economy that cotton production, that rice production, that all of these industries generated. You could benefit by being an insurance owner. Slaves were insured like cars. Enslaved people also produced goods that were sold. So if you were somebody who was in the shipping business or, the cotton milling business, all of them benefited from slavery. So whether you were a small farmer or a big farmer, the slavery system benefited you. And you were willing to go to war to preserve it and to preserve white supremacy because that was the whole basis of your society. And by the way, a lot of people in the South went to war simply because they were told to and because the rich people around them made sure that the poor kids were doing the fighting, right? And so it doesn't matter whether your family was rich, poor, had one slave or 10 or none. It doesn't matter. Everyone in the South benefited from that economy and that system, and they went to war to preserve it and to preserve white supremacy forever. So that's the answer to your question. You also told on yourself just by saying that at all, because why are you curious about how much they cost? You missed that system, right? You think things were better then? One last note. That flag is not even the flag that your forefathers fought under for their farm. That was not the flag of the Confederacy. That's a flag that they created afterwards. It's literally just a symbol of racism and white supremacy. And you're flying it because MAGA. Peace out.
Whenever I highlight systemic issues that are going on in the church or behavioral issues that certain Christians exhibit, I will get this on my page. There is no hate like Christian love. And I want to talk about that phrase for a little bit because there's a lot of truth to that. What I see time and time again is that Christians will express hate with a smile on their face and using love and light rhetoric. It's happening consistently. Pastor Kevin Wallace is a great example. He said that he wanted his church to be the most loving church in the world, while at the same time spewing one of the most violently homophobic sermons that I've heard in a long time.
We want this house to be the most loving church in the world. I hear the Holy Spirit whispering to me, never let your love become an excuse for compromise.
Another great example is W. Rose Worship. She's the woman who stole, purified, and Christianized the Nico song saying that it was demonic. And she's done nothing but double down. And she's doing it with a sweet voice, saying we just have to stand on the truth of the word of God and we have to be uncompromising, while at the same time demonizing and attacking a black artist and calling the lyrics demonic.
We are also going to be called out by the world. This is a reality of being a spirit-led Christian. This is a reality of standing up for truth in love.
But it's not about the song being demonic. It's about the hatred that the person has in their heart. They can call it love. They can say that they're standing on God's word or whatever they want to call it. But what's really happening is that they're hurting and demonizing people. And keep in mind, this is something that has been done historically. When the Europeans colonized Africa and the Americas, a lot of them went forward with this idea that they were saving these poor people groups from themselves and introducing them to the gospel. So any harm that was done to these communities, the enslavement, the pillaging, the murder, the theft of land, any of that stuff that was done with the idea of we're helping these people, we're civilizing them. But this is exactly what I've talked about in a previous video. Christian supremacy and Christian privilege in the West gives people the ability to hide behind labels and not be held accountable for the fruit they bear. So they can profess love but live hate. They can profess peace but live in conflict with nature, other people, even themselves. But I agree that our religion is not the life that we idealize, but the life that we actually live. And it's very telling that the closer that some of us get to actually living love, the further away we get from institutions, spaces, and even people that simply profess it. And I think what's happening more and more now is that people are seeing behind the veil of the love rhetoric. They're looking instead at the actions that people are exhibiting. And the funny thing is, that's actually a Christian principle. The Bible says, by their fruit you will know them. So when people say there's no hate like Christian love, they're looking at the fruit of people's actions, not the words that they speak. And this is one of the many reasons that people continue to divest from the church. Have y'all noticed this? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And as always, like and follow for more content.
So I've been thinking a lot about the No Name controversy, and it's been really bothering me. And something that bothers me about it is that when we just asked her not to put Jay Electronica on the song because he's blatantly anti-Semitic, her response was, well, Jewish people are white. And the thing that pisses me off about it is that she's right. A lot of Jewish people are white in America. And that's not because they're culturally or ethnically white. It's because America forces them to assimilate into whiteness and to leverage their whiteness over people of color. That's part of the process of becoming American, is if you are capable of assimilating into whiteness, being forced to assimilate into whiteness. This happened to the Italians and the Irish when they immigrated to America. And unfortunately, this is why a lot of anti-Semitism is now coming from the left, because people are having a hard time reckoning with the fact that Jewish people can benefit from white supremacy while simultaneously being oppressed by white supremacy. What a lot of people don't realize is that the reason that we don't call conservatives Nazis a lot of the time is because a lot of conservatives aren't really anti-Semitic. They're anti-Black, they're anti-trans, they're racist, but they're often not anti-Semitic. It's the flat-out neo-Nazis that are anti-Semitic. And the reason for that is because they want to maintain a cultural majority in society. Conservatives want to maintain the white supremacist cultural majority. So to do that, they have to ally with Jewish people. They have to assimilate Jewish people into conservatism. So I think that there was a way that No Name could have critiqued white supremacy without specifically targeting Jewish people. Like, Jewish people benefit from white privilege to a certain extent, but that is not unique to Jewish people. That is unique to every single group that has emigrated to the United States and been forced to assimilate.
People have asked me, why is it that many Black and Latino populations don't really earn an environmental science degree? And a lot of people say, well, of course systemic racism plays a huge role in influencing who gets an environmental degree. For starters, many Black and brown people of color don't really feel safe nor heard in the dominant environmental space. I mean, a large percentage of environmental scientists are majority white. The second thing is that for a lot of Black and brown people, I think we are stuck on a lot on the generational wealth of having to exceed. So getting a degree, like let's say in the arts or in the environmental sector, is something not seen as a quote unquote profitable career. Like when I told my parents I wanted to save the planet, they said, okay, well, make sure that there's some generational wealth involved. And it was really sad because it's like, you know, the environmental sector doesn't really pay well compared to business and like tech. Of course, climate tech is now rising, but you know, you have to think about it from a longevity context. It's like, who has the privilege to engage in these types of environmental spaces without having to fear the future of the planet, themselves, and their family? So for a lot of low-income people of color and like Black and brown folks, like they have this overarching barrier, or not barrier, but weight on them to have to provide for both parties. My work has always been focused on diversifying the environmental spaces, specifically in academic areas, to get more Black and brown people of color involved in environmental science. And I think, you know, white supremacy is such a huge issue, but the idea of imposter syndrome is also prevalent, in which even myself, I often feel like I'm never seen as an expert. Why is it that we can go on this app on TikTok, look at a white environmentalist or scientist, whatever, and be like, they're a true expert, they know everything. Look at a Black and brown person where it's like, are you really real? Are you credited? And this is how racism really operates. The algorithm chooses, of course, who's going to be centered in whiteness. And yet I think myself, I really struggle with trying to have these conversations sometimes without people trying to get offended that, you know, I'm talking about them, and it's like, no, we're talking about the system of whiteness and how it changes. So anyways, diversify your environmental spaces.
When you go to a PWI, obviously you're going to encounter your fair share of snow bunnies, but what do we call the men that chase the snow bunnies? Athletes. No, I'm kidding. I propose we start calling them ducks, because they're constantly chasing bunnies. Like Daffy Duck? No? Okay. And the reason I was thinking this is because I visited another PWI, and I tend to get out of my body a little bit at parties. However, the plan wasn't to entertain a man, because I was there with my shorty, and I was like, this is girls' night. And this is a PWI, so they're playing white people club music, which I'm not used to, but I'm like vibing, you know? I see this guy walk in. He's tall, he's cute, okay. And I instantly assumed he was an athlete because of the amount of people walking up to speak to him. But I'm ignoring because, again, I'm with my Pookie. Now, in addition to the white people music, they got a white people DJ, which is my favorite kind because they do the thing where I think it's called a crossfade, and you can like hear the next song at the end of the first song. And that way you can get hyped for whatever song is coming next. Now, throughout the night, I had low-key been keeping tabs on all the other Black people in the room, which was like 3. I lost track of the Black girl that I saw at like the beginning of the night, so the only other Black people I know of in this room are Mr. Maybe Athlete and his friend. So halfway through the night, we're getting to the end of one song, and I hear the beginning of Finito. I'm looking around the room, and I need somebody that can match my energy for this song, okay? I've been waiting for something like this all night. I've been listening to white people club music. And by someone who can match my energy, I mean somebody who could say a certain word. So I find Mr. Maybe Athlete and his friend, because they're not far, and we turn into like this little triangle of us like yelling the words at each other. So by the end of the song, I'm thinking, okay, that's my fun. Like, let me go back to my girlies. No, they put on an Ice Spice song, and I can't remember which one it was. Now, I know all the words, so I'm still keeping the vibes of like singing the lyrics at him. We get to a point where he's here while I'm singing, and I'm a little, you know. Now at this point, I'm reprimanding myself in my head. I'm like, girl, back up. This is how you go home with people. You are here with somebody, and you need to leave with those people you came with. As I'm about to excuse myself, I peep his screensaver. It's him with a white woman. So I'm like, I will not be caught messing with a man with a girlfriend again. I'm innocent. Hold on. I'll do a story time on that later. But chill. Keep up with me. Y'all, why over the course of the rest of the night do I see this man pick up a phone call from not one, not two, but 3 white women? Mind you, he's tall. You're holding your phone over your face, over the crowd. Like, everybody can see your phone. But I'm peeping this. I'm like, oh, yeah, no. So I'm saying we need a name because, like, when my friend asked me, like, why did nothing happen, I'm trying to figure out a way to say that man is a snow bunny magnet. Because if it was a girl, I could have just been like, oh, she's a snow bunny. But there's no name for the guys. I say we put it to a vote. Y'all let me know. Anyway, this is the beat. I'm finna go do my work.
Native American, when you're not native, is a lot like telling a bear you're a bear when you're not a bear. If you tell a bear you're a bear when you're not a bear, you will get mauled by that bear. If you wear the traditional clothing of a bear when telling a bear that you are also a bear, you'll get mauled by that bear. If you tell a bear you're 1/16th bear, but you don't know what kind of bear, and you've never bothered to research your bear culture, and yet you think you have more right to an opinion about bear issues than the actual bear standing in front of you, you're gonna get mauled by that bear. If you make products with a bear's face on it, and even though you've made $1 billion off of it and the bear has clearly said they don't like it, and you don't give any of the money you've earned to bears in need until you're guilted into it decades after you started doing it, you and that bear are fine. Just kidding. You're gonna get mauled by that bear. If you tell a bear that lions are your spirit animal, you're gonna get mauled by that bear. And the lion. If you, a non-bear, make friends with a bear, learn their bear culture and language, and then get mad when the bear doesn't ask you to be a member of their bear clan or give you a bear naming ceremony, you're gonna get mauled by that bear. Also, bears don't have naming ceremonies, so that request is stupid. You tell people you're a bear even though you know full well that you're not a bear just to get jobs and opportunities that are set aside for bears, you're gonna get mauled by a butterfly. The bear would maul you, but he's in a business meeting. Wait, meeting's over.
Hey, I thought we were done. Ouch, though.
So, in conclusion, if you're cool to Native Americans, you will not get mauled by a bear. The end.
Hey y'all, what's up? It's Friday, so I'm gonna keep it black, but I'm gonna keep it brief. White people, I need you to get your fellow whites. And which white is it this time, you ask? Rolling Stone magazine co-founder Jan Winter, while he was promoting his book Masters, which, who gonna tell him? It's a collection of interviews with artists throughout his career. Winter sat down with the New York Times to do an interview. There he discussed who he thought best represented rock and roll's impact on his world. He says John Lennon, Bob Dylan, Mick Jagger. Fine, to each his own. But when asked specifically about his exclusion of women and black artists, this man fixed his mouth to say, as for the women, none of them were as articulate enough on this intellectual level. Huh? None? As for the blacks, he said maybe Marvin Gaye, Curtis Mayfield. He threw Stevie Wonder in there as well and stated that they just didn't articulate at that level. And I'm just trying to figure out what Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and Curtis Mayfield you was listening to. But that's not all. He then went on to say, for public relations sake, maybe I should have gone and found one black and one woman artist to include here that didn't measure up to the same historical standard just to avert this kind of criticism. White people's racism don't even be elevated no more. Y'all either be sounding like you literally been living under a rock or that it must be crack. Like, is it drugs? Musical preference is not a problem. Everybody like what they like. But it's the blatant attempt at undermining black brilliance and committing black erasure that we just can't hold space for anymore. Let's start with the obvious. Rock and roll? Come on, dog. That's literally our shit. I have already talked to y'all about Big Mama Thornton, B.B. King, Lil Richard, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, and the fact that rock and roll was born from black artists, most notably a black queer woman by the name of Sister Rosetta Tharpe, making music between the 1930s to her last known recording in 1970. This lady was classified as a gospel singer, but pioneered the use of distortion while recording music, and by playing electric guitar, pushed gospel music into the secular realm, and then became known as the godmother of rock and roll. Also, Stop Playing and starred Amber Riley in the biopic, Ooh, If We Can Get Off the Strike. Anyway, to even suggest that black people and women are unable to operate at the same frequency of these so-called masters is nuts. And how you gonna call the book Masters and not include the literal masters that brought you and them white boys a whole genre? Woo! It's also giving eugenics, my boy. Race, science. Not a single black person in the history of music meets your criteria. Over there doing mental gymnastics just to be racist, and now look at you, done lost your job. Shortly after the article's publishing, Winning was asked to step down from his role at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. His cavalier flippancy towards two entire demographics just reiterates that anything of quality and substance has to be born out of whiteness. And it's the tentacles of this idea that continues to impact the industry today. For instance, there are so many black rock and roll artists like Brittany Howard, Willow Smith. Lord, we didn't even talk about Tina Turner. You gonna disregard the lady on her deathbed? Same goes for country music. We brought y'all the banjo. Y'all remember how they did Lil Nas X about Old Town Road until Billy Ray Cyrus hopped on the track with his hat down, crossed down, living like a rock star? Which was the inverse of how they did Beyonce and the Dixie Chicks at the 2016 CMAs. They feel so comfortable dubbing themselves as the arbiters of all that is holy and good and position themselves as gatekeepers. Anytime a black artist shows and proves that anything you can do, I can do just as well or better. Just recently, Victoria Monet shared that her team was told that it was too early in her story for a main stage VMAs performance, despite the fact that this lady had some of the most viral moments on the internet this year and boasts an extensive career writing music and making hits like Do It by Chloe and Halle and most of Ariana Grande's hit album, Thank You Next. What are we talking about? Every award season, y'all don't want to give Beyonce her things. One of the quotes from the voting committee for the last Grammys, which included Jan Winter, by the way, literally said, with Beyonce, it's just the fact that every time she does something new, it's a big event and everybody's supposed to quake in their shoes. We're not supposed to quake. We just quake because it's just that good. And just because you ain't put it down good enough to make nobody quake in a minute don't mean you got to be a hater. But, well, maybe I guess you do.
I grew up in the church. I grew up in a very conservative Baptist small town in Kansas City where I was taught to fear everything. Like I was just, don't get in the music industry and do what they're doing. If you take off your clothes or if you're showing skin or if you're doing this, then you're a Jezebel.
Wow.
It's not godlike. Have your morals, have your values, be, fit into our idea of what's good. And as I started to, express myself in my art and I wanted to play and I wanted to really honor all of me, right? All of that started to come up, those aunts or those uncles or those people in the church that would judge so many of the girls in our neighborhoods. Ooh, look at her fast tail self wearing that short skirt. Or look at her on TV, got her breast all out. That's all she can do is sell sex. Like you would grow up and hear those things. And as I started to realize, wait a minute, y'all not dealing with the real issue. The real issue is the patriarchy in which we're living in.
Yes.
The misogyny.
That is true.
We have not felt safe for so long to express who we are. And the fact that you're trying to stop this person's shine, and also you're trying to use my image, right, to talk down on other women, I will not accept that. I will not allow that. And absolutely, it made me say, I'm about to show these motherfuckers. We are all fighting for the same thing, to have bodily autonomy. We are fighting to, if we want to dress up in a tuxedo and present as masc, femme, we have the right to do that without somebody trying to force us to look this sort of traditional way of femininity. We basically, when we want to do what we want to do, we will do it. We will not play into your social norms or assimilate. We will not assimilate.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted to make it very, very clear that I stand with, even if my freedom doesn't look like my sister's freedom, I stand with her.
I love what you're saying with that. And I love what you're saying too, because the patriarchy really will have you effed up. It will have you feeling like, okay, which ideas are my own? Is it my idea that I don't want to feed into what you think is traditional? Or is it my idea that I am feeding into traditional? It can just, and then also it all stems from a place of the assumption that what you're doing is for the male gaze.
Ooh,
Yeah, it makes it think that it's always about that. I'm not saying if you have a man you want to look great for him that's not valid. That's great, but that's not every scenario. Everybody is not dressing for that. I mean, if I'm being quite honest for you, I'm living for the yes, bitch.
Yeah.
That's what I'm living for. I'm living for my girls. I'm living for you know what I mean. I don't know a man that really cares about makeup and all that kind of stuff. So it's like when I'm getting myself all glamorous, I'm living for my girls and I want them to get into it. And it's a total different representation when you see that. And that's when I was talking.
So, if you don't know what's happening in Atlanta right now, let me tell you. Straight up fascism. Over 60 activists were indicted yesterday under the RICO Act. RICO charges are usually reserved for things like mobsters or gangsters or Donald Trump, but this time it's being used for activists that are trying to stop Cop City from being built. Cop City is an 85-acre and $90 million training facility that's being built for cops to basically just learn how to kill people better. As you can probably guess, the people of Atlanta, don't want this. But that's not stopping Chris Carr, who's trying to run for governor. In an effort to basically just quell dissent despite the overwhelming disapproval of this place being built, cops have basically just engaged in a witch hunt against the protesters and activists that are actively trying to stop its existence. These cops in their witch hunt have even gone so far as murdering protesters, including Manuel Tehran, who was shot 57 times. They say he shot a gun, but he didn't. Manuel and most of the protesters there are engaged in non-violently and always have been. Instead of shooting guns at people, they do things like pass out magazines to spread information and educate people. They do things like set up bail funds to bail out the activists and protesters who are non-violently there. These activists are promoting collectivism, which is the idea that the individual needs are subordinate to the good of the whole of society, mutualism and mutual aid, and social solidarity. It probably looked like I was reading that from something, and that's because I was reading the indictment. Go ahead and take a read for yourself. Fulton County labels these activists as anarchists and uses that to justify violating their First Amendment rights. Whether you agree with the protest or not, agree with Cop City or not, of which you shouldn't agree with, and I can help you if you need to get there. But even if you don't, this should fucking scare you. You can be charged under the RICO Act for literally just giving somebody money to help bail them out, for literally just passing a magazine that just shares what mutual aid is, that just shares what's happening. Legit, dead ass. Y'all need to really be aware right now of what's happening in this country, because we're headed down a really, really, really dark path. Really dark, bro. How much longer until this is criminal activity? Just posting and sharing information on the internet. Posting on TikTok, what I'm doing right now. Am I at risk? That's where we're going.
We are living in a culture that undervalues and demonizes femininity and values and privileges masculine.
I always find it funny when white queer people get on here and try and have these deep nuanced takes that literally only apply to them. Because this idea that masculinity is somehow rewarded and given so much privilege in society only applies to white people. Because if that were the case, Black people would be on top in society because of how over-masculinized we are as a people, and that's just simply a fact. Black men are over-masculinized in our society. Black little boys are over-masculinized in our society. You have police officers treating 12-year-old black boys like men and putting them through the police system and trying them as adults. This idea that masculinity is somehow a privilege does not fucking apply. You see this with black women who have been removed and ostracized from the feminist movement. You see this where they've been removed and ostracized from this idea of womanhood, as if they're not women. They've been treated as not women, historically speaking, and over masculinized, right? So if this is the case, why are we not on top if masculinity is somehow this great rewarding thing? And not only that, but if we are talking in the grand scheme of things, this idea that masked lesbians or whatever the fuck in society are getting all this privilege by being masked lesbians, I'm sorry, but that's simply not fucking true. Maybe other queer people are more attracted to masculinity, but that's not a privilege. I'm saying statistically, black masculine presenting, non-conforming black people, queer black people, are more likely to face physical violence than more feminine presenting queer people. okay? That's a fact. So I don't know where all this privilege you're talking about is, but it's not fucking true. Like, it's not fucking true at all. I would simply make the argument that femininity is infantilized in society. Now that you could make a fight for it, that it's infantilized, even when we look at our criminal justice system and how women and men are tried for certain crimes, and we can look at sexual assault towards men versus, like, if men are doing it versus if women are doing it. We can look at those statistics. But I would definitely say infantilized. I would not say that masculinity is an overarching privilege for everybody in America, because it's not the case. And this is my issue when we have identity politics and you have white people making the charge for identity politics, when, I'm sorry, and this might be a hot take, but I do not think that intersectionality is for white people, because at the end of the day, no matter how many boxes you check off, you're still white at the end of the day. And that's how you end up having white queer women saying that they're more oppressed than black men in our society. So it's just like, can y'all please get on here and use your brains and not say weird shit online that doesn't make any fucking sense, because you don't live in reality. You live in this little bubble where you don't see yourself as white. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you're, like, in school, but, like, please go to school or something, or, like, go outside. Like, go outside in the world. I don't know.
Let's do a deep dive into one of my favorite Erykah Badu songs, Green Eyes. Now, this song is a 10-minute journey through the stages of grief after a breakup. It's a 3-part story of a roller coaster of emotions, each representing a chapter in Erykah's life.
It don't have nothing to do with your new friend.
In the first part, Erykah's soft and bluesy voice cranks out of a gramophone, taking us back to the 1930s jazz era and into the first stage of grief, denial.
It don't have nothing to do with your...
She tries to convince us and assure herself at the same time that she's not jealous about her ex's new partner.
I don't care, I swear, I'm too through with you.
It's obvious she's putting on a show to make her ex believe she's moved on, but beneath the false act, she's secretly obsessing over him.
So go ahead and be with your friend. My eyes are green, 'cause I ate a lot of vegetables.
The song moves on to the second part where the truth comes out. Even though Erykah desperately wants to move on, she's not ready to give up on the relationship and still has strong emotions for her ex. Another beautiful thing about this song is that it's also a journey through time. While the first part was more turn of the century jazz, the second part is more mid-20th century, featuring flutes, bass, and brushstroke drums by Questlove.
I'm insecure, but I can't help it.
There's still traces of denial, and she feels powerless over her emotions, battling between her head and heart.
My heart lags behind, but I don't love you anymore. I'm so insecure, never knew that love did this.
What makes this story so interesting is that Erykah's path isn't exactly linear. Her emotions are all over the place, unpredictable and out of control.
I'm so confused. You tried to trick me.
In this part, Erykah acknowledges feeling hurt and tries to accept it, but sorrow and depression consume her, sending her into a spiral. She uses the phrase Silly Ibadu as a metaphor, comparing her relationship to the dynamic of Looney Tunes' Wile E. Coyote always chasing after the Roadrunner, but never catching him.
Silly me, I thought your love was true. Change my name to Silly Ibadu. Before I heal, it's gonna be a while. I know it's gonna be a while, child.
Once again, Erykah jumps through time, and the third part of the song brings it all the way around to modern-day neo-soul. And Erykah's words echo the feelings of a woman with nothing left to lose. She was already in too deep and couldn't turn back now.
I can't live
And Erica reaches a point of desperation, begging him to make love to her one last time, hoping that it might change his feelings.
Just make love to me. Just one more time and then you'll see.
She's still unstable and immediately contradicts herself.
I can't believe I made a desperate plea. What's with me?
Drowning in self-pity, she finally surrenders to reality and confesses her feelings of regret. She finally realizes that she was better off without him and that the relationship was not healthy for her growth. It was never meant to work out from the start. Green Eyes is not only an emotional journey but also a homage to the evolution of African American soul and jazz music. Erykah Badu is one of my favorite artists of all time, and this song perfectly showcases the beauty and depth of her music and songwriting skills.
Wow, so Republicans want to invade Mexico. Yes, you heard me right. They want to invade Mexico.
Okay, so if you're confused about the whole Republicans want to invade Mexico thing, I've seen a lot of people confused. I'm gonna try and break it down in literally like a minute in the most simple way possible. So what Republicans are claiming is that they want to send U.S. Special Forces not only to the border, but inside of Mexico in order to control the fentanyl crisis and the drugs being brought against the border, like through the border. What they aren't telling you is that a lot of people, majority of the people bringing in fentanyl into the United States, causing a fentanyl crisis, are U.S. citizens. Big shocker for the Republican Party. It's not immigrants causing all your fucking problems. But what they conveniently left out is that recently Mexico, under AMLO, found a lot of lithium in Mexico. And guess what that powers? Electric cars. It's a very valuable resource. But they nationalized the industry in order so no one could become like super rich off of it in order to benefit the actual country. And that made Republicans mad because they're like, whoa, that should be ours. Even though it's in Mexico, it should be ours. So all these rich people in the United States want their hands on that fucking lithium. So what are they going to do? They went to the US government and was like, we want that lithium. So what are they going to do? They're going to invade Mexico to stop the fentanyl crisis? No, bitch, they're going to go get that fucking lithium. And if you don't believe me, guess what? This isn't the first time they've done this shit. This is Evo Morales. He was the first indigenous president of Bolivia. And guess what Bolivia had a lot of? Lithium. And guess what happened? The US government funded a coup to get rid of him. Yeah, they took him out of power because they wanted the lithium for themselves. And when confronted about it, and people were talking about how Elon Musk was involved in that, Elon Musk said, we will coup whoever we want. Deal with it. And people were like, no, he's just joking. He's just joking. Guess what Tesla runs on? Lithium batteries. So I know that Republican propaganda is strong, but don't fall for it. The main reason they want this like war on Mexico and war on drugs and fentanyl shit, they want that fucking lithium to make the rich people richer. And this is also a random stray I'm throwing out, but all you bitches were like, oh, go see Sound of Freedom. It talks about child trafficking. Guess who's doing child trafficking at the border? The Border Patrol. Oh, ICE. Oh, yeah, bitch.
My name is Point of View, and I'm joined today with the woman, American superstar Beyonce, pointed at and labeled Ain't No Diva on her Renaissance World Tour. Let's take a look.
She ain't no diva. She ain't no diva.
Carrie Hilson, how are you today?
Miss Carrie, baby.
Not a single soul asked for that. I repeat, how are you today?
Blessed and highly favored. You know, I'm actually working on my next studio album titled...
Gorgeous. Let's talk about what I actually invited you here today to discuss, shall we? So you're the mystery woman Beyonce pointed at and labeled Ain't No Diva.
I am, yes.
Pointed at, labeled Ain't No Diva, and smirked in the face of, in front of millions of people.
Where are you going with it?
Why do you think she did it?
So me and Beyonce have had beef since 2009.
Now when you say you and Beyonce,
are you implying I'm the only one who knows Beyonce and I have beef?
I didn't say it.
Are you implying the beef is one-sided?
I didn't say it.
Are you implying Beyonce, in fact, doesn't even know who I am?
I did not say it.
I'm 7 months behind on my rent, and I really need the check from this interview to clear, so I'ma just move on.
Carrie, we explicitly told you we're not paying you for this. So I emptied my savings for a backstage ticket to the Renaissance tour in hopes of patching things up before I drop my next album. That may just be the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life. But before I could even get backstage, Beyonce peeped me in the front row of the crowd. How do you know she was pointing at you? Her team scrubbed it from the internet, but after she pointed at me, she did the pretty girl rock. Could it have been a coincidence? And then said, in case there's any confusion, Carrie Hilson, I'm talking to you.
So I come across this tweet where this white MD is talking about how social workers, nurses, therapists can write down rude behavior for a physician to see it. And my mutual Imani brings up a good point of how black people are typically seen as rude and combative in medical settings. And I figured I'm gonna take this time to tell a story, but not my story, my older sister's story. So my older sister was denied from the heart transplant list twice. 27-year-old black woman with 2 kids, denied twice due to non-compliance. Now the non-compliance in question included not always liking to eat that nasty ass hospital food, missing medication because nurses would forget to wake her up, and then having anxiety panic attacks that were deemed as aggressive and rude to staff. She died about 2 months after she was denied the second time on the transplant list. It's been 7 years since that she passed, and it is still ingrained in my head how our healthcare system can so easily masculinize and villainize black women who need care. So let's just start all the way in the beginning. My sister had postpartum cardiomyopathy, which is a heart condition after her first pregnancy, which took a little minute to diagnose because the doctors dismissed it as asthma for a year, and by the time that they diagnosed her, she was already in full-blown heart failure. So for 5 years off and on managing heart failure from around the ages of 22 to 27, 28, in and out of hospitals, having 2 kids, trying to go to school, you can only imagine what that could do to mental health, right? So yes, every now and then she would freak out. She'd freak out in the hospital. She'd want to go home. She'd want to pull things out. She'd want to go home to her kids and just get the fuck out of there. Now, I would think a whole bunch of healthcare professionals in a healthcare professional setting would be able to see a black woman with a terminal illness having an anxiety attack. But no, that was often written down as aggressive noncompliance. One time, me and our dad were in the hospital room with her, and she was in such a great mood, which by this point in time was very rare. Laughing, having a good time. The social worker comes in and starts berating her about her supposed mood, berates her about missing medication that morning, even though my sister told her that the only reason she missed it was because she was sleeping and the nurses forgot to wake her up. And after this back and forth for around 10 minutes, the social worker decides that that's when she wants to say, oh, they're also concerned that you're a bit depressed. They're concerned about your mental health. And at this point, my sister's spirit and energy is completely ruined and drained. She's numb. She can no longer answer. And that's when my dad steps in and says, you calculated that. You came in here when we were having such a great, wonderful mood, started bringing up all these negative things, not listening to what she was saying, beat her down, and then wanted to have a discussion about her mental health and talk about how she's seemingly depressed. That social worker left me. My sister started bawling in infuriation and in tears, and she's telling us, this is how it feels to be here all the time. This is how I feel I'm being treated. Throughout the 5 years for management, my sister would often use marijuana to help with her pain management and her appetite, which her doctor confirmed and knew she was doing. Want to know one of the other reasons she was denied from the heart transplant list twice? Small traces of marijuana in her system. And again, after the second time she got denied, she died around 2 months later because her body was already failing. She had already had multiple near-death experiences, passing out where her heart stopped. She had to get a defibrillator because it was happening so often. It was affecting her schoolwork where she had to stop going to school. She couldn't be home to take care of her kids and be with her husband. Not only was she fighting a terminal illness, she was also fighting a system that was hell-bent on villainizing her at every step of the way. And if I'm being quite the fuck honest, rudeness from people who are dealing with terminal illnesses, how are we really quantifying that? Because if black people who work in the healthcare system can deal with old fucking racist white people saying slurs to them and they still gotta give them care, I'm kind of not inclined to understand how rudeness can be equated or conflated with abuse. And that could go to a whole other video, maybe from someone who has a little more expertise in this exact field than I do. But I say all to say because my sister can't tell her story. She's no longer here to do so. And I typically don't go into the specific nitty-gritty details because every time I do and I think about these memories that I have about how there was clearly some fucking medical negligence, I get enraged. But rage is a good thing. Rage is amazing. It feels change. It shows you what the fuck is going on and why things are a problem. If we're gonna have a conversation about appropriate, respectful behavior in the healthcare field and the healthcare system, let's make sure that you're keeping that same energy for the black woman that you're treating. Because there's an actual person whose life and future depends on it. Rest in peace, sis.
Check out this video.
One of my favorite black phrases is I could have woke up dead. I grew up in church and, the pastor be up, I could have woke up dead, sleeping in my grave, but Jesus did it. Jesus saved me. I woke up dead.
This was one of my favorite phrases growing up too in the church. And it shows up a lot more with growing up. One of my favorite gospel songs, Grateful Reprised by Hezekiah Walker. It's different from the original Grateful because it had singers come up and give thanks to God through song, each of them sharing what they specifically are grateful to God for. Like in these parts.
I should have been dead, sleeping in my grave. You made old death behave.
And like Kev alludes to, this is a theme that shows up in black preaching and in black gospel music. But what I noticed as I grew up and I started to visit white and multicultural religious spaces is that the themes in those spaces are different. And this makes sense because there is a different cultural and historical relationship to suffering in black versus white church spaces. So a lot of our music and preaching deals with suffering and even more so gratitude in suffering. So when a preacher is facing a black congregation that has been through hell all week, it helps to remind them that things could have been much, much worse. And if you had a bad week or if life is just really hard, at least you're there. At least you exist. And that's something. So when we're thinking about how this relates to theodicy, which is again the kind of theology that wants to question, interrogate, or defend the goodness and justice of God in the face of the existence of evil, the question that we can ask ourselves is, what does it imply about an all-good and all-loving God? A God that many believe promises abundance and a fullness of life, for us to accept simple existence as the baseline of gratitude in black church spaces. When I went into white church spaces, they would sing about the greatness and the bigness of God. Don't get me wrong, we got black gospel songs like that too. But I'm just saying I've never gone into a white church space and heard a song about rejoicing and suffering, about not being able to pay bills or rent and things like that.
How you gonna pay the rent? All your money spent. A little bit to buy some food. The baby need a pair of shoes.
Or ideas like this, right?
God, I could have been dead and gone, but you saw the difference. You decided to save me, save me, save me. Oh, and I'm grateful. I should have been down and out, but you saved me, Lord.
So God is deciding, and I'm here because what? I'm a good Christian. So when people like Reverend Naomi Washington Leapart pose questions like, do Black lives matter to God? It's getting at the root of ideas like this, about what we imply about God when we specifically have to accept simple existence as the baseline of gratitude, while others rejoice in the abundance of systemic privilege. Again, to be clear, I'm not saying gratitude isn't valuable, just providing perspective about how these ideas show up in different spaces, why that is, and what it potentially says or means about who we believe God to be. Feel free to share in the comments, and as always, like and follow for more content.
And baby, let me love you back. Touch me, please me. And kiss me, boy.
If you want to understand why there's been such a large conversation around the disappearance of the modern day pop star, look no further than artist development. Hi, my name is Pablo, and it's clear that Ayana is taking lessons from the Matthew Knowles School of Artist Development. Artist development is the most important facet to creating a long-lasting pop star. I'm talking about people that last 10, 15, 20 years into a career and constantly put out great, innovative music and work and keep us entertained. No one can argue that Beyonce has been the poster child of this sort of artist development since being in Destiny's Child and even before. One of the most crucial parts to this artist development is making sure your vocals stay strong and can handle 2 to 3 hour performances. Matthew Knowles would literally put Destiny's Child through summer camps year after year just to develop them into the powerhouse group that they would eventually become. And now to see someone like Ayana taking those lessons from Matthew Knowles and applying it to her own career lets me know that 1, she takes this very seriously, and 2, she's going for longevity, baby. Not only is her new EP In a Perfect World full of vocal powerhouse performances, she's also taking this project to emphasize the importance of visuals, because the entire EP is also a visual project. Not only that, but she's actually doing the very unique thing of showing everyone the process of artist development on social media. So now we as the audience gets to see the actual process of what it takes to become a formidable pop star. And we get to go on the journey with her as she ascends through the rank of pop stardom. In a Perfect World is out right now, and trust me when I say Ayana is proving to us that superstars do indeed still exist.